G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Algared. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Well, I think we've solved the glitchy sound we were having,
Don't
which is
pretend.
why we're late.
No, we're late because Old Man Hurston was clubbing seals and puppies. That's what he's doing. His daily routine. No, it's fine.
No, Execute. I don't go around clubbing seals and puppies. No, nor do I, as people claim. Aren't those contract breakers in the sewers? There are too many flow paths in the sewers. They're nasty things. You don't want to go down there.
According to Paul, you're clubbing cat girls. Yeah, I get it. Cat girls and workers. Yeah.
Now, that's wrong as well. Paulie knows that we use the cat girls to pleasure and take care of. Dear me, did I say that?
All I can see now is Old Man Hurston surrounded by cat girls in his pleasure palace. Yeah.
No. We use those cat girls. Heard those cat girls for those people who are taking and purchasing Paul's produce. Evercrack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
I think Old Man Hurston's morphing into some weird, strange, Heisenbergy cattle farmer or cat girl farmer. It's gone beyond the it's becoming scarily horrible. He's turning into a proper Hurston. You guys are ruining him.
Yeah. So we thought today we'll have a talk about vehicle concept ideas and just see what some people can come up with. I was telling Algared about one I had before the show. I'll tell you guys later. But yeah, we'll have a look at that. So if you've got any, again, we use the word question. Maybe I could expand the word question in the bot to be statement or something like that. But I can't. Oh, actually, speaking of the bot, I need to turn it on, don't I?
Yep, turn the bot on. That's always a good thing to do.
But yeah, so we'll do that, and we're gonna watch ISC. I don't know, Algared. It seems like a roundup to me.
It does seem like the roundup before CitizenCon. What's coming for the new patch, which is we kind of you kind of expect that before the patch comes anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does really feel like that, doesn't it?
Well, it basically, and knowing them the way they do, they'll literally take an additional week because it's like a like, does that mean they're gonna cut? Because I'm doing the math, like it means like a week or two before AIE they come back because there's a 3-week break. So I'll have to see how it's going. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well, or evening, or afternoon, depending where you live.
It is morning for us. It is almost 8 a.m.
Too early, to be honest with you. I got 7 hours sleep. I was saying to Algared, I got 7 hours sleep. I felt like that would be enough, but it was not enough. So yeah.
It is too early for us when we're an hour late.
Yes. But that was just technical difficulties.
Technical issues beyond our control.
I will share, actually, just while we're speaking of technical difficulties, as you guys know, I've been having issues with this camera, and I think I might have, I've said this like 89 times at this point.
Yeah, we've said it multiple times, so one day we'll get it right.
So the other night, I was getting really frustrated with it, and I was literally about to buy a new one. I said, oh, all right, I'm going to have a one last go, and I went through like almost every setting on the camera. I was playing around with it. Anyway, I was going to try and unplug the cables and see if it turns off again on its own, and I went to touch one of the cables, and when I touched one, the screen turned on. Now, normally the screen doesn't turn on. And then I had an epiphany, and I played with it again. And so I think this whole time, one of the pins in one of the cables, since the very day I've had the camera, has been slightly out of alignment. And so basically, if I press it in a particular way on the cable, it will sit there, and the little screen is now on. And I tested it, and it lasted for like an hour. Which it doesn't normally do that. It normally lasts like 25 minutes and then just turns off. So after testing, it worked for, just fine. But this will be the first show, and this will be the real test. So hopefully this whole time it's just been some kind of loose cable. But I don't really touch the cables. Like, I have it plugged in, and I just leave it up there, and I just press the button on and off, and that's it. So this whole time it could have just been technically a dodgy port since day one. that I've
And
just...
that is the worst pun ever. And yes, normally we'd say, get out! But no, please stay. And I know you said you'll see yourself out, and I know you're joking, but...
When did he say pin down the issue?
He said, so you pinned down the issue?
Yeah, I did.
But that raises a bigger question, because it does mean... It likely means there's an issue with the pins in the camera being bent. Because how many times have you tried different cables? Dozens, isn't it?
Yeah, that wasn't my first suspect. So I think I tried like 3 different cables on both of the, because there's 2 ports on it. You got to use a HDMI and a USB.
Yep.
But I don't want to get too much into the camera stuff because that's not what we're here to talk about. But the bot should be running. I'm going to do a test.
The bot is running. To our question stream, just so that those asking questions can get that there, and the bot is streaming, or the bot says it's starting.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, it's working.
It has just done the questions test, so that's good.
Cool. All right. So how many people we got? We'll wait for a couple more people then before we get started. Just a few more, and then we'll watch ISC. I'm assuming you guys have already seen ISC. Opinion. The Super Saber is a 2-man heavy stealth fighter bomber manufactured by Age Thomas. Isn't it called the Bear Claw or something like that? I know Paul knows all those
Super
names.
Saber, yeah. Yeah, I think there is one they did have called the Bear Claw, and I don't think we've seen it.
Just randomly put question at the end of your statement, and it'll go up into the questions if you.
Yeah, even if it's an opinion.
Yeah.
And that way we this is one of the conundrums we do often face. It's the chat's streaming along and going at a merry pace, and there's some great content in there. But if we're looking at the question stream, which is coming from Twitch as well as YouTube, we're paying attention to that. We're not always paying attention to the chat, and then if we're paying attention to chat, we miss the so. We try to do both, and we try to also juggle between both streams, and that does, mean often either we see all the conversation and then miss the questions, or we see the questions and miss the conversation, or get them out of context. So, it's an iterative process, but we'll get there one day.
I just realised I've got the wrong thing turned on. Hang on. Bang. Look at that magic. No, that last one, Algared, that's the one I had set up for the new Fix My Fleet. People won't know what we're talking about because they haven't seen them. But we've been stockpiling Fix My Fleets this week.
Yes, we'll be doing number 3.
And I think that the preview or sneak peek would give Algared. It is probably the most. How do I say this in a nice way, Algared? How do we say it nice? Because it's trying to say the word worst, but nicely.
It is certainly
the most interesting.
It poses the most unique problems, and it actually sees a solution that is totally against what we normally do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I actually think the default state of it is probably the worst we've ever seen a fleet in.
Yeah, and I think part of it was there were issues that resulted in that, but I also think I know we looked at fleet and went, oh yeah, that's not too, it's a mess, but we can help fix this up and help them get to where they want and where they're saying. And then we started asking questions, and it was like this, oh my god.
Yeah.
I think even I had a moment of going, yeah, this is a mess. This is a and it was a mess, not because there were bad chips in it, just because there were so many missed savings.
All right, camera did freeze.
Anyway, camera just froze. Oh well.
Maybe it's not going to work. I don't know. We'll find out. All right.
Yeah, so it certainly is a great learning experience, and I think that one's a really good one.
Marek was there. That's wwhy he's commenting, because he's one of our supporters, and he was there watching us.
And he was there listening in and taking advantage of that Patreon privilege that the Endeavour Patreons get, which is be able to come in and listen to a live stream as we're doing it. And even at times when we're doing the planning session, Star Runners and Endeavours can actually listen in and actually contribute and actually help sort out the stuff. So, yeah. So that's a little plug for if you do like what we do and you'd like to go that extra mile, there's always the Patreon support, which you can do. It does help us significantly. As you saw with Execute's camera just freezing, it will probably also mean that it will eventually help us replace that camera. And then we also do want to try and help Badgers get a camera as well, because
he was
expensive things.
He was actually, so this whole time he's been using a mobile phone, and his mobile phone died. But yeah, so he's more than likely just gonna have to wait till he can get another mobile phone, essentially. And if you know how the current finance situation is around the globe, things are not cheap when it comes to those phones at the moment. They've pretty much doubled in price. So, all right, here we go with ISC.
I'm not sure what Merrick meant by teacher speak there, but whether it's just me waffling on.
You sound like a teacher. Yep. All right, here we go.
Oh, I went into... okay.
It's a time of change here at Star Citizen. The Frankfurt office has moved into their new digs. The Winslow office prepares to migrate to Manchester starting next week. Our CitizenCon presentations are looming just 9 days away. And much of the focus of our development teams at present is in preparing for the upcoming Alpha 3.18, with persistent entity streaming that serves as the foundation not only of server meshing in Alpha 4.0, but everything else in the persistent universe as well. And since Alpha 3.18 is now scheduled to arrive in the first half of November, and ISC enters its regularly scheduled hiatus the next few weeks, we thought we'd take the opportunity to try something new with our last episode of the quarter. A follow-up to each of the 3.18 related feature segments that we've done this quarter, looking at how they've continued to grow since we last showed them to you, answering your questions that you had after watching, and rolling them all into one big supersized report that we're calling the ISC follow-up. Because we're really, really good at naming things. Enjoy.
Well, at least he owns it.
So since updating you on the rivers earlier this year, I've been focusing on the visual quality of the rivers themselves, so that when you explore them, they are looking better than ever. I think the biggest visual change I've introduced to the rivers is the new cliff spawn.
Oh, wow.
points.
That looks sick. That's, so I live in Tasmania, and in my hometown there's actually a gorge, and that just instantly made me think of where I live. That's really, really cool. One thing I would hope, and I don't know if they've got a way to test this, but notice how both hills are the same size. I'm assuming it works with a height of terrain and keeps the river the same height. So if you actually did put like a mountain in there, it literally could cut a gorge through a mountain. That is pretty cool if that's what how
and
it
if it does do that, that is really good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But that means the creation of canyons becomes linked to rivers and other stuff. So it just adds, doesn't it?
Well, it also means you could essentially make a tool called like Dead River or something like that. And so basically you put a river in and it creates
and then take the water out.
Yeah, exactly. It you know, so there used to be a river there and there's not anymore. But that could be really interesting to create, just like it's a canyon creation tool essentially. Yeah. Well,
even I always think of the Dusty Diamantina, the old song. Those in Australia would get the reference. But the Diamantina is a river in Australia. It's dry heaps of a year, but when you get the rains, it floods and runs, and you can just imagine that as you got a river that's dry most of the time, but you get a storm come through, and all of a sudden you've got water running through the river for X number of weeks of a year, and then it dries up and goes dusty again, and so you could actually have this. Yeah,
it does show that
imagine prospecting down there, and there's a storm upstream, and all of a sudden you hear this roaring, and you've got to get out of the way because the water's going to wash you away and destroy your camp and nasty stuff.
I'm also thinking there's still a lot of things I got to add, like really bizarre things like glaciers and stuff like that. There are going to be some things that they need to add.
Oh, look, I think that's what we need in ArcCorp, not ArcCorp, in Microtech. You actually need a glacial river.
Yeah.
You don't just need and that changes the way they work as well, because whereas a river will end up giving you a V valley, right? Give you a valley like that. A glacier will actually give you a U valley as it grinds through the mountain, and the terrain will be different. So a river will actually end up being more smooth. A glacier will end up dragging boulders. So if you go for a glacial valley, you'll see massive granite boulders all over the place. And then it creates things like Americans will know Yosemite Park and Half Dome Rock. That's caused by a glacier.
Icebergs too. That's a good one, Axis. Yeah. All right.
Previously, where we had steep edges along the river, we just had the terrain texture that we get on steeper parts of the terrain. But I wanted to kind of increase the visual fidelity of this by spawning cliff meshes along the edge of it. So that's exactly what we've done. For the cliff mesh spawn points, we add a new spawn point at the height of where the terrain would have been if the river wasn't there, so that we can control where the top of the cliff is relative to the edge of the terrain near it. And that's these red spawn points you can see here. When I turn these back off, you can see we have cliff meshes that look as if they're the right height. You can walk onto them from this terrain here,
So it's not automatic.
while still providing a nice kind of closed-in gorge for this river.
Different heights. Look, different heights.
And actually, we were so happy with the results of adding it.
You want to say?
I was going to say, while it wasn't originally that, he's putting those spawn points on the river mesh. So the river, those spawn points, as I get it right, if I understood what he was saying, they will actually go to where the height of the land was when he put the river in. And so that's how the cliffs will be formed.
Yeah, it's literally just given an area for it to spawn the cliff in. Yep.
Additional spawn points around these gorgy areas, that we decided to add more spawn points along the edge of normal rivers as well, so that we can get rocks right along the edge of the water to break up the silhouette between the terrain and the water. You can see those points here, and when I turn back on the scattering, you can see what that looks like. So as you can see, that really helps to break up the silhouette of the water, but also makes the whole area feel denser and more real. Another visual improvement I've worked on for the river is using more splines with the river modifiers. Instead of just a single central spline along the path of the river, we now have a spline for where each of the edges can be. And this gives us much finer control over how the terrain should dip down into the river, which is what actually matters rather than the depth at the middle for most cases. But it also means that we eliminate some of the effects we were getting at sharp bends. What we used to get at the sharp bend of a river was a pinching effect in the middle here, where the terrain would jump from referencing a point somewhere here on the spline to referencing a point somewhere here on the spline. So you can see that they're basically equidistant from a point over here. So we'd either be referencing the terrain from one or the other without ever kind of passing through this middle bit. Now that we have a spline for each edge, we can pick which edge is closer and then more closely reference that when picking the final height for that part of the terrain. And it just means that the edges of our rivers are much, much cleaner. We're getting much less in terms of artifacting that we were seeing before, and the overall result is just a lot better. That would also,
if I understand that correctly, it also means you could technically widen the river on one side and technically like thin it on the other, as an example. So you're setting the perimeter of the river as well. That's pretty cool. If I heard that correctly.
That seems to be what he's saying. Like before, you've had just the river line for the river going down, but now because you've got the wider, you can actually have a wider river, a narrow river. Hopefully, that also means that they can actually create the overhangs that you'll get on those sharp turns, because as the water's rushing past a sharp turn, it's actually washing away the underside. So you might get those overhangs of cliffs, which adds to the creation of cave entrances or even
that's a really cool
little
one.
hidey holes or other stuff.
Well, Algared, you just literally said water-based caves. I didn't even think of that until you said that. Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Or even, you could have a cave you go into and it collapses and you've got to find your way out, and the way out is like into a river. So, yeah.
Or you've got and even an overhang. You're trying to hide from someone. Those overhangs become really useful. So you're in the river, you go to the overhang. You do a hidden from a radar or the heat signatures or whatever people are doing. Smear mud on yourself and go full Rambo if you like. But yeah.
I'm really, really excited to see all of the new rivers come into 3.18 very, very soon. Put a lot of work into improving the visual quality of the rivers, as well as improving the tooling for our artists to be able to place more and more interesting rivers. Our tech artists have been hard at work for the object presets for the rivers to make sure that we're getting really, really cool distributions of objects around them. And I just think what we're going to see in 3.18 is going to be a cut above what we've had so far, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks all.
Now that is a massive canyon.
Yeah, that is really similar to where I live.
My response to that is, damn it.
I would like to see a little bit more undulation, as in height reference. It does, like in the foreground here, you get a little bit of, but like on that other side, it does look a little flat. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the far side looks pretty flat, and what I gather you'd get on the side of these is you get a lot more of a weathering effect, so you'd actually have a lot more.
Yeah, you'd still have ones that come up higher than it though, and you would have ones that go lower than it. So if this is the first iteration, that's fine. But you know what I mean. You would get jutting rocks up that just hadn't been weathered as much, and you'd get ones that had been weathered down. So
you'd also have along these canyon walls. You'd also have organic weathering going on, so you'd actually have plants growing out of the sides of those.
You would also have, when you get to certain heights too, you'd have levels. So you'd also have, like, there might be a rock that's like, standing halfway up or whatever. You get what I mean. Like,
they wouldn't be straight vertical. It'd be more angled with steps.
We are nitpicking at the moment, but like this is like real world stuff. Yeah.
We are nitpicking at the stuff of rivers. What do you want to call it? Rivers 1.0 or
it keeps alliterating on it though, so it is getting better and better. Like this is the next step up. We are now talking about the next step again. Yeah.
Yep. Creative. What is it?
Since the last time we spoke about the PTV racetrack, it's been mostly just bug fixing. For the most part, it's been like the usual occasional collision issue we had to fix up. Also, there was like instances where RQA testers just took the card and went off the track and like drove into the elevators and got into other parts of the level. So I kind of had to go around and fence off all the areas where people could leave the track. Also, just in some cases, inside the track, there was little shortcuts that could be taken, so also these ones had to unfortunately block them off so nobody can gain an unfair advantage. One of the things we didn't discuss last time is where the buggies actually come from. So they're not something the players bring themselves into the space. There's this little side section of the track where they spawn, and you take them and then just kind of bring them over to the starting line and start from there.
Would have been cool actually if they had like numbers on them, like at a go-kart place or something like that. But yeah.
I imagine that'll come, especially since they're default. You're not bringing your own buggy. They need to have them decked out with paint skins. They need to have numbers on them, the full-on racing skin type setup for each different buggy.
I don't know if you've noticed there, but he's playing on a VR headset. Because look at where the thing's positioned.
Yeah.
And when they're destroyed, then they basically respawn in that section again. So there's always 8 buggies for the players. I can't wait
next time it goes to him, just stop there, X. How many of those games have you played?
What, in the background?
Yeah.
A few of them. Especially
I can see Rebellion, I can see Catan. Yeah, the board games.
yeah, we ain't talking about video games. I have played Uncharted 4, but yeah. I've played a few of them. Andor, Catan. Yeah, okay. He's Rebellion. Yep. He's a man after our own heart. All right.
He's a nerd like us.
Yep.
We'll do with it once they get it in their hands.
Since the last time we spoke, Korea has changed a lot in its environment. We've been sort of building up and sort of breathing new life into it, making it on par with some of our other locations in terms of branding and sort of how we want the player to move.
Well, I got my sneak peek correct this week, so
through the space.
Do you know the complaints on the post were it looks too clean? And I have to be honest, it does look too clean. Because considering the Kree we moved from, it's just like it's all been made, like all of a sudden just been upgraded. It's kind of strange. But it makes sense. If it's been
and it looks great as a cop station. But for a cop station, it is constantly being fought over. It is too clean. It's too pristine.
Yeah. You know, it'd be really cool if there's like dead bodies in the airlock and stuff like that. Where they've just left them there because, whatever. We'll see.
With this, CS1 and 2, Crimestat 1 and 2 are no longer going to be...
Yes! Sorry.
Yep.
Things that get you shot or get you, stop you from landing at a location. These fines will essentially just be like mini slaps on the wrists. Law enforcement will comment on...
I'd heard that back through from people at CIG. They'd heard what we'd said. They got back to me and Paul and said, yeah, we're fixing that. So that's good that they've told everyone. I like that.
Yep. I like that.
When they stop you and tell you to go pay your fines off, but they're not going to be as big of a meaning as they once was. Alongside this, we've also added other ways for the players to get rid of their sort of criminality. The fine kiosks that you can find all around now have a button that allows you to surrender to law enforcement. This gives you the 20% discount of your time served when you go into prison. And as always, this is going to go live and we're going to continue iterating on it, reading feedback and making improvements.
So does that mean instead of paying the fine, you could just surrender?
You could say, I surrender, and then instead of saying a 15-minute fine, you'll get a 30% or a 20% discount. So you'll go to a 12-minute or a 10-minute.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to get a second account, Algared, and just switch between the two and never pay a fine ever again. Right, anyway.
Yeah, well, you could do that. So
when the first video released and we was talking about Klesha, I was watching HC Vertigo, and he pretty much nailed the mission and who was given it. So I'm not going to spoil it. I don't want to let you know. But yeah, if you want to find out who it is, go check out HC Virgo. Since the last time we talked about Klesha and the new updates to that, things are going along nicely. We have AI walking about. They have loot on them. They're making the environment feel...
Algared, do you know the cap that he's wearing?
Nope.
Right. I bet
I'm sure you do.
No, I do, and then someone in the chat will tell you who it is too.
More alive. The black spot is in. The mission is working. In the mission, we've added routes coming out of the wall so that even though people might know how to beeline it out of there, now they have to figure out how to get to this place they've never been to before and break the route they're normally used to and then have to rejoin, which is the difficult part because we always make the rejoining bit harder and they can fall all the way down or, whatever. So that's it for the updates to Klesha. Check it out when you get a chance.
How have the caves changed since we last spoke about them? Just some bug fixes and some polish work. So yeah, they're done.
They're done. That's the best update ever. He's like, yeah, he's concise as shit. I love that. I gotta watch that again. Sorry, I was distracted by chat.
Changed since we last spoke about them. Just some bug fixes and some polish work. So yeah, they're done.
So it's been a couple of weeks since the last time we talked about the Daymar crash site, and since then we've mostly been polishing and debugging. We had a go-no-go during which everything went smoothly. We actually noticed during playtests that the missions were too easy, so we just did some tweaks.
What ship's that, Algared? Can you tell?
Looks, I'd say Starfarer. I don't know. Nacelles at the back.
Yeah, I thought it was.
We added some.
I thought
AI.
It was a C2 for
on
a second.
On the level art side, they were working on some LODs, so how far
600
the objects are going to display.
Okay.
We did a better navigation pass for AI and for the player, and I think we tweaked a little bit the cave, but
no, sorry.
There's just a crash chip in there, nothing else.
Oh yeah, it is the 600. You're right, Cam. It is totally.
Now, notice all those notice all those cloths and levers in that ruined base as well.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, so lots of animal produce there.
Yeah. We did obviously talked about the animals on stream last week. We also did a show on animals. It didn't track very well, but man, Algared and I both don't get epiphanies often, and so when we were getting epiphanies, that's why we did an episode like that. So we hope you guys that are watching did get those same epiphanies last week when we were talking about animals. That's why we do an episode, because more people tend to watch the episodes. But yeah,
Let's chip in there.
people just for some reason, like us, we both kind of checked out of animals and farming. But I don't know, Algared, how would you put it?
It was speculative, but I don't think it was pie in the sky speculation. It was
no, it was just taking the other systems and
just looking at what could be based on what we've got, and there were things that we both thought of that we hadn't really thought of in depth. And I think the second you start doing that with any system in game, you start to look at the possibilities that could be there and going, oh wow. And then you look at the tech that they're doing, and you realise with that tech, when that tech comes online, they can do that type of thing, and that just starts to blow your mind. And then you look at other games like No Man's Sky or even Red Dead.
It takes it to another level entirely.
And you go, well, they're doing that. Yeah, they're doing that in No Man's Sky, so they could do it. Or they're doing hunting in Red Dead too, and you can go off on your side panel and do your hunt and come back, and so those types of things are already doable in games, and so that Star Citizen will probably take that type of stuff on board and run with it. So
the level really came back to AI, didn't it? At the end of the day, like it's how far they want to go with the AI on the animals, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Nothing else. We've also been working in integrating all the missions, so there's going to be 3 missions on the Daymar crash site. There's going to be a kill specific, a kill all, and a delivery missions where you need to go in and gather some loot crates and deliver them. We've also been working on changing up the AI that's there, because currently it's the Ninetales and we wanted to add a little bit more diversity in there. So we're working on adding in the sand nomads, which are probably not going to be here for this release, but possibly the next one.
That's cool.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see different mobs.
Well, it also gives people an opportunity to get a different armor set in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd even like to see, not just Ninetales there or bandits there, but even just people who are, like Levski, they want to escape. They don't want to deal with the issues anymore. They just want to be.
Yeah, but they couldn't afford to get to like Levski or whatever.
They couldn't afford to get to Levski. They're just on the outskirts. So the people on, like, I know there are people living on Hurston who aren't employees of Hurston, but they can't afford to be elsewhere, so they're living on the outskirts. And and so I think the area of citizen or people living outside the walls of Hurston or Lawville, they're not actually citizens. They're just people who are poor buggers who just can't make a crust. So they're living on the outskirts and the fringes, and that's what I'd like to see.
We last talked about the Siege of Horizon mission last week. We forgot to mention there's also some missions just coming to the islands that the Siege of Horizon takes place on. So these missions are going to take.
I'll just make a point on Can's comment there. Yep, civvies, so you can't. So there's no reason to go on that murder spree that everyone likes to do.
Place on the islands when Siege isn't active. The missions we have you doing will take you from building to building, eliminating a number of enemies, or maybe taking out a high-value target. These missions are currently just like a prototype. They're very basic. They're just kind of exploring what direction we want to go at for these and other islands. So these will be another small addition when 3.18 goes live.
So there were some questions after we released our last ISC where we talked about hull scraping, and there are some things that I can clarify from our position. So what makes a reclaimer more profitable or better in comparison to the vulture? For T0 there is no real difference. So the only difference there is you have more space to store your scraped off hull material. But the proper differences only come with Salvage T1. So once we talk about munching and actually like converting proper ship debris into smaller bits, the size of the reclaimer is definitely an advantage. Some comments were all asking about how can we use the scraper beam in an offensive manner. Technically you can, but you have to make sure that the target ship has its shield deactivated. So as long as another ship is shielded, you will not be able to touch the hull, because there's like this energy field that is protecting the hull. So there were also some questions on the repair side, and sadly this repair iteration isn't the full fleshed out repair that you might need if your ship is fully destroyed. So if you lost a wing, the wing is lost. If you lost your engine, the engine is lost. So your magic.
So that's literally like I said, Algared. It's that.
It's just patching the hull.
Yeah, that confirms that whole repair stuff. Yeah. So yeah, you got the underlying body frame and then the skin above, and the main reason for that was if they could just make it so you could just chop it into pieces, you essentially are making different entities that have so for example, if your ship's red and you cut it into pieces, then all those pieces have to be red, where if they strip off the hull and then cut it into pieces, they can literally just have that same one texture on every hornet in the game. They don't have to have a red hornet, a blue hornet, a green hornet. So it saves
because you've already stripped off the outer skin and the outer paintwork, so it doesn't matter which one they use at that point.
And that's why they're doing it that way.
The repair gun that right now is taking the hull material to create new hull material. So this gun isn't able to 3D print you an engine, a fully functional.
That's what the Crucible does versus the Vulcan. So the Vulcan and the hand tool are just doing the surface. The actual printing of the wing is what those arms are on the Crucible, and they can actual make new structure. So that's the difference in tiers. So that I think repair is going to have like what he said with the reclaimer. The actual munching is you're going to be able to munch more and process it faster with the reclaimer, but it's way more structurally the other way, because if you can build structure with the Crucible but you can't build it with the Vulcan, fundamentally huge difference.
It really changes the whole argument of, well, I've got a Vulcan, I don't need a Crucible. Well, no, even if you got a fighter, you want a Crucible.
Yeah, you're literally going from a patch job to, like, so say, and I wouldn't pick a tank because tank's a hard one to kind of visualize, but say it's a cyclone and the wheel gets blown off. You know, a Vulcan's not going to be able to give you a new wheel, but a Crucible can give you a new wheel. You know, so.
I could imagine you could have spare parts in your ship. You know, whether it's landing gear spare parts or other bits, and then maybe use those, pull those out of your storage to do repair. But that would be different from what the Crucible could do by literally pre-printing or printing the material they need to do the repair. So, but that's delving into the realms of speculation at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But we'll see.
The engine with all its parts. So what it does is just cover-ups of like your hull. So it increases your health of the ship again, but only to a degree where it is reasonable in comparison to what the hull actually stands for. So the material that you gather with the vehicle can be converted into the material that you use for your multi-tool.
So essentially what he's saying here is it's structurally sound, but it's not to 100%. You know, so if you kind of think of it, it's almost like a putty filler, as opposed to actually bringing it back to brand new, and that's why it's a patch job. But if you go back to an actual proper repair facility, they can kind of like put the coat of paint across the top type of thing. That's
I think it's doing a bit more than the coat of paint at that point. It's actually doing a proper replacement rather than polishing it up and all the rest of it. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
To repair ships. There's one more thing. So we saw that you were already asking for what about players that are not interested in any combat scenario or in waiting others to shoot themselves to shreds and then picking up the debris pieces for profit from the hull scraping. Well, we have a solution for you. And well, the miners of you might already know it. So we will expand our harvestable system to also facilitate to spawn fresh derelicts. And what are fresh derelicts? Basically, they are just the husks of existing ships that have a probability to spawn in asteroid fields or basically around all the Lagrange points. And you will be able to find them using scanning and then approach them.
Now, Algared, I've actually stumbled on some of these already. We in the last couple of patches, I've run into random ships in random places. Like I've run into a freelancer just in the middle. It was around a space station, just floating there, but it was not a player ship, and it was not like when an NPC dies, it despawns. And I sat there and watched it, and it was there for like 20 minutes. It didn't leave, so I'm pretty sure it was there. And the other one I saw was a Mustang. So I don't know. Has anyone else ran into what I would call derelict ships?
Axis says I ran into Axis says I ran into an MSR. So
yeah. So that's interesting. So it's interesting, and I guess people will find them more and more now. They're looking for them.
Like you would do with a mineable, and then scrape off their hull. And that is coming in Alpha 3.18.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that when you show a feature the very first week of the season, there's lots of room for additional improvements like we saw with Rivertech. That QA can be just as squirrely as players when testing the arena racetrack. That Correa is looking pretty fresh with its Crusader makeover, and that changes to the law system will make Crime Stat 1 and 2 less troublesome to deal with in the future. In theory. And that while hull stripping won't be the offensive weapon some folks were theorizing, using the harvestable system to generate non-combat wrecks will be a welcome addition to the more peaceful-minded citizens out there. Now don't forget that CitizenCon is next Saturday, October 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. UTC. It's shaping up to be a really informative quarter day, and not just visual updates that you've come to expect, but more design and gameplay presentations that'll lead the way in the Star Citizen's future. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you next week at CitizenCon.
Or 2 a.m. for Australians.
Yeah, 1 a.m. It's 1 a.m. Me and Algared are looking at watching that and streaming it. We've never kind of really done that before. We kind of just sit in a group and watch it on Discord. But we are looking at actually just, we'll stream it and talk as we go through.
One advantage is if we stream it, it's content. It feeds the algorithm.
I'm almost wondering if there's a way we can watch it with the like pause it and talk, because like one of the things I heard from a few of the other content creators was that it was very hard to talk between the panels because there were such short gaps between them. So
yeah, I imagine we probably could, but it'd be like we'd start off live, and then by the end of it, we would be half an hour or an hour behind. And so yeah.
I'm back.
And yes, Kaiser, the Crucible can't remake modules, but at least from our understanding.
Well, it would depend on how they do it. It'll just be the structure. So you got to remember. So the way you got to look at it, right, and the easiest way to explain it is if you get a ship at the moment, you've got the outer hull, and if you do damage to it, you can see underneath it that there is some kind of structure underneath. There's a framework inside every single ship. The hull is that outside part that you can shoot currently, and so you're stripping that off, and that way every ship looks the same. So if you have a Hornet that's red and a Hornet that's blue, once you take the skin off, they both look exactly the same. So it's to make them look exactly the same. So with the reprinting a module, so to speak, as in if you're talking about like a Caterpillar cargo module, yeah, you'll be able to reprint parts of that, and you will be able to put the outer hull back on, you will be able to do that. But if you're talking about like a component module, no.
Yeah.
But an actual module, a ship that's modular, I don't know. Maybe you want to reword that question better, because that.
I could see a module that has been a ship that's modular that's been had the module completely destroyed. I couldn't see it being repairing, but if it's damaged, if it's significantly damaged, I could see.
If it's completely destroyed, it's the same as a ship. You can't completely repair a ship.
Yep.
You know, but I don't know.
If it's had a turret blown off and it's on the turret, I think it could do that. It would be interesting to see.
Why would you create a module from scratch when you could just buy the whole module again? It would work out cheaper. You know what I mean? So you would just create the ship and then and put the new module on, because
I suppose the reason you do it is if you're out on the fringes and you had your ship there.
Well, that'd be akin to them saying, okay, I'm going to build a freelancer from scratch.
Yep.
You know, and I don't think they're going to let you do that. You know,
you'd need to have significant parts of a ship.
They'd probably, the way I would probably do it from a design perspective is there is a core central piece of that munchable frame, right, that's right in the center or something like that, or the backbone, or the, you know, the
keel,
and if that is destroyed, you're shit out of luck, you know.
If the old you know, breaking the back of a ship, if that's gone, then you're up the creek.
Or the other thing is you could literally make it so it's the type of thing that can go down to like 1%, but it can never be destroyed. You know what I mean? But you need that to be able to rebuild it all the way back to 100%.
I would imagine it's the way that I think probably the easy way, and I'm assuming, would be a ship at down to 30%. You can repair and build up, but if it's like 25 or 30, then you're just salvaging the crap out of it. It might be 40%, it might be 50%, but you get the idea.
Well, the other way you could do it, Algared, is just leave it up to player choice. Like, because if you do it that way, you know, if they're stupid and they really do, or desperate, they can actually get a ship back. You know, like they just need that ship and it's too far away to go buy another one, and they can have a junky freelance, whatever is the ship that they're building. You know what I mean? You can, in desperation, rebuild it, but it will cost you a lot extra. I think it's player choice at the end of the day. You know, but obviously there will be a turning point where it is more profitable just to strip it rather than rebuild it. You are right.
And I think there's a point that also comes into the outposts. If you can fully repair the ship from scratch using your handgun or whatever, then why the hell have we got wrecks where they're setting up a settlement?
I think they're going for realism. They're going for.
Why do they have wrecks that have, you know, no sealed off areas? Because you'd be using the, you know, if you're crashed on a planet, you'd be actually and you're there for a while. One of the first things you'd be doing is actually making sure you actually had a place that was sheltered from the environment. But,
we have seen shots of the Vulture on the surface, hull stripping. I would have liked to have seen in that video, they didn't show it, but I would have liked to have seen like where they show they were spawning on the ground and show them spawning in space. They only showed them in space, but we have seen footage of the Vulture. I remember it from when they showed it. It was like hovering above the ground, so that does imply that there are ground ones as well. But
which is a good segue, I think. A good segue into the topic. Ground vehicles. What would you like to see in terms of working with those wrecks, or helping rebuild those settlements, or working with the settlements,
or any other profession for that matter?
Yeah, or you know, or what ranching vehicles would you like to see? Since,
so
old man Harrison, he's a rancher. You know,
so I'll share the idea I had, and it's a little hard to visualize. But what I explained to Algared was like, how do I put this?
A Vulture on wheels.
Yeah, it was a Vulture. It's a Vulture on tank tracks, but it's, imagine almost like the body of an Ursa, but then it's got like tracks out in front of it, almost like the Vulture's arms, but the whole thing's on tank treads. And so basically it can just like roll right up to the vehicle and basically hoover it in. What was my initial thought, but I don't know, you guys give us your thoughts. What's some vehicles that you'd like to see? Because I think the other one, Algared, that you and I have talked about too, is the utility truck that can carry the the raft boxes and stuff like
And
that.
and I am going to make a suggestion. When you're making those suggestions, chuck the word question in, so it'll flip across to our
Yeah,
to our
to the bot.
our bot. So the bot will go ooh and put it in so we can more readily see it. Otherwise, and that way it doesn't get lost. If it's in chat and it just scrolls up, we will most likely miss it. So
yeah, so that utility truck would also have some form of tractor beam on it, so you could put vehicles on the back of it. You could even have it so it tilts like in modern times, and you could pull a vehicle onto it or salvage.
Yeah. And I did see, the fuel truck, the flatbed truck, and their standards. I'd like to see tying in with the idea of the ranching, a feed truck. Just boring everyday stuff that's just.
You want a Sil and puppy clubbing vehicle? I know you. That's what you want.
I need some.
I know you guys weren't all here since the start of the stream, but that happened at the start of the stream. We had
I need something to look after those cat girls,
Yeah. Oh, a cat gear vehicle. Yeah, I can see it now. The Uwu. The Uwu vehicle.
The Uwu. That's right. We need an Uwu vehicle.
Oh dear. All right.
Paul's gonna regret that.
Yeah, Paul's. Didn't you see his post on Twitter? In the past 24 hours, and it's just like he lists like the 4 things. Oh, what was the other one? I've just been. Was it, I can't remember what it was. It was like something. Oh man, I'll have to look it up on Twitter.
I haven't checked the
crowshawed
yet.
I've just been crowshawed. I just remembered it.
I've been crowshawed.
Yeah, I've just been crowshawed. And
I've been crowshawed.
So what crowshaw is it's going to become that thing where you can't ever figure out what it is that's actually happened to you. It's just like anytime something happens, I've just been crowshawed. So
I've been crowshawed.
Yeah.
Yeah, something bad. I've been crowshawed.
Yeah.
Totally crowshawed.
Yeah, and it was and we were talking about it like a move in game. So like they've like stabbed you or something, but like it evolved from that, and it's now just like anything bad that happens to you is crowshawed. But like it's meant to be an inside joke, so everyone on the outside doesn't get what you're talking about because it's just like it feels like this and then it feels like this. So yeah, that's what crowshawing is. It's kind of like something bad happens, but the other people can't figure out what it is. All right. Grey Cat mini truck. Actually, I can see that. I can. I get that. Elon Musk. The self-driving trucks that he made. That would be kind of cool. I only just thought of that, but yeah.
Now I could see Unknown Guardian says Sandcrawler, and I could see that. It ties it.
That's kind of what my Vulture was. It is kind of like a sandcrawler. The Vulture vehicle I was talking about. It is kind of like a sandcrawler, but I was thinking more like a snow one. But his is right. Yeah, it would be like a sandcrawler. Yeah.
I think of because that ties in with so many. Like I can remember it was a Doctor Who with Tom Baker where they were doing the androids of. But basically sandcrawler androids are running in place half a dozen people. And. Sandcrawler. You've got the Sandcrawlers of Dune. You've got the Sandcrawlers of Star Wars. Man, yeah, I could see that being something that ties in with so many franchises, sci-fi franchises that.
Well, yeah. Now you mention it, the other one is like giant walkers and stuff. Like you got the AT-ATs. You've got the War of the Worlds walkers and stuff like that. So. And ATSTs and all that stuff. So yeah, some walking vehicles. I didn't even really think of that one until just then. So yeah.
And then we do have our the grey cat crab, a grey cat mining crab.
This is true. I didn't think of that one.
I never remember the name of that crab, but yep.
The mining tick.
Yeah, the big mining tick. And you've forgotten the name as well, I can tell. Someone in chat will tell us, I'm sure.
Cygnus Miner. I got there. I got there.
I was thinking...
I got there.
No, I was thinking Cygnus, no. Sinus, no.
It's just like you can feel the synapses just go firing, and it's like, there it is. Yeah, Cygnus.
I was cranking the brain.
It's just... and those of you that has been there around long enough, and I know most of the people in chat have been here for a long time like us, there's too much to bloody remember.
Yeah.
It's unlike any other game because it's been here too long.
Yeah, and that ties in with the amount of lore there is. Just Like when you consider that 10 years of lore, 10 years of the lore team writing at least one post a week. And originally it was like 5.
So on a small side tangent, I was talking to a friend last night, and I did message you after I talked to this friend, Algared, and he's going through similar issues with a game that he started following called Pantheon, and they started out on Kickstarter, much like we did on Star Citizen, and they're 4 years in, and they're making like an EverQuest MMO, which is why I messaged you, because you're big into the EverQuest and Evercrack and all that, and yeah, he's like all the stuff he's talking about is like, oh, people are giving us shit and all this stuff. I'm just sitting there going, it's not gonna stop. So yeah,
but man, that's just part of development. You know, when it's an open development, you'll get that feedback from people who will say, I want it now, and I want it, and I want it now.
Yeah.
So
and they've only got 35 people working on that, and they've raised $5 million. So I think they've done pretty well for themselves, considering, you know, the number of people they have on it. And unlike Star Citizen, I said to him, I said that, you know, I can see the positive is they don't have to make all this new tech. Essentially they're trying to make an older school MMO, but, you know, with some modern conveniences of a 3D engine and stuff like that. And I was like, they don't have to invent new tech, so they you know, that it's just going to be getting the bodies to make the game. That's their hurdle, and they should be okay, I think.
Yeah. The scary thing is that you were saying, oh, it's the spiritual
successor of EverQuest.
EverQuest, and I said EverQuest is still functioning. It's still you can still play it. It's still live. It's still going.
Well, he laughed. When you said that message, I showed it to him, and he laughed, and he goes, "Yeah, well, that's technically true, and that's why I replied the way I did." But then he went, "But he's totally missing the point," and I didn't say that part, but you were, because you just went, "No, it's still out," and I'm like, "Yeah, but he's trying to. He wanted
it is
you
a
to
similar
look at
game,
it." Yeah.
But it was
All right. So we do have a few questions here now, so we'll kick it off and we'll go through, and as ideas come up that you guys have put in, so we'll discuss, and maybe that'll get a conversation not just between me and Algared, but it might get a discussion with you guys. So we'll go through these. The first couple of ones are just going to be standard. So Sandgrover asks, how are you two this week? Well, we're tired. I think we talked about that at the start, but
we're good.
Yeah, Algared, you're a little off center, just so you know. You're slowly doing this.
Hang on. There you go.
All right. Then
better?
That's much better. 600i post rework ultimate solo ship.
No.
One of them, because one's going to have the bed and the other's not. So 50-50.
What do you mean one's going to have the bed, one's got not?
Well, isn't one of like the explorers getting the bed or something like that, and the touring isn't? That's how I remember.
They've all got the master bedroom.
No. When I say the bed, I mean the hospital bed. Isn't one getting the tier 2 bed and one's not? That's what I remember it being, unless I remembered incorrectly.
Yeah, I got the impression. the explorers getting the bed.
Yeah, and I thought that was the better version already. You know how I feel about touring. That is one thing we did talk about in the video, though. I do think touring and animals are going to be a thing. So anyway, I don't want to get too much off on a tangent as we tend to do here. But yeah, you know, most people know how I feel about Origin ships. I know they need to do more, and I will say this: I am very happy that the 600i is getting more, but I also want gameplay along with that. Right at the moment, it's just getting a feature. So so now it's got medical and touring, or medical and exploring in this case. And I will say, as 600i goes, I am actually happy that it is designated as exploring. You know, there are other ships that, man, well, Algared and I have talked about this too. Like we've talked about that particular person that kept saying the 890 jump is an explorer. It isn't. It doesn't have those. You know, it probably needs a module. You know what I mean? So you can swap between touring and exploring, especially since how big it is. But you get where I'm going, right? Yeah.
You can use it in that sense. You know, it does have. You know, if you look at the systems they've got on it, it does have the same basic scanning suite that I think the Carrack has. but it doesn't have other features that make it an Explorer. It's not built as an Explorer. It's I've had it explained to me or described to me by CIG as a Bentley that's the size of an office block. That gives you an idea.
Yeah. It's kind of like the appropriate tool for the job. It's like it's like you could take a panel van to a shootout because it's cheap and it does the job, or taking like a Porsche. You know, like it would be hard to get in and out of, and you'd probably get yourself shot trying to get out of it. Yes, it gets you there quick and gets you away quick, but it just doesn't do the job properly. It's inappropriate for the job.
You can use any vehicle for any job, but some vehicles are going to be better at the job than others. Like,
do you remember Algared way back when, where people? Oh, what was the question? It was something like, "I want to use X ship to mine," and we were reading. It was a question from like 7 or 8 years ago, and we just laughing out loud because of how much things have changed. But it was something like someone wanted to, that's what it was. They wanted to put a mining laser on a Hornet.
Yep.
And go mining with a Hornet.
And back then, CIG said, yeah, you can, but you won't have you won't have the storage, so the vacuum aspect won't work. And they've pulled back. They've pulled way back from that now because they've said the pipes of the power and everything are different. You'd need a utility mount rather than a. But yeah, back in the day, it was a hard point. You could put anything on the hard point.
No holds barred back then, but yeah, everything's changed now. It's become a bit more realistic and a bit more grounded, which is a good and a bad thing. Like, I can see pros and cons to both, but like, it's definitely, as we're saying, the appropriate shit for the appropriate job.
Yeah, I think the original idea was tying it back into that idea of play the game your way. And that makes sense. But then as you start looking and going, well, is this hard point, what's the difference between a hard point and a utility point? Well, if they're all the same and it doesn't matter, but the second you start wanting to really specialize and have certain advantage for certain things, you need, So,
just noticing, just to reiterate, there are a few people putting their vehicle ideas up, but you need to put question in there because our bot is designed to pull out the word question. So, can you please put question, because otherwise we're going to miss your bot.
Yeah, because if everyone's doing it, the chat's just screaming by, as we're looking at different screens, we won't.
Yeah, because we're tracking Twitch, YouTube, and
the Discord.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading the Twitch stuff as well. Sorry, multiple channels. All right. So next question, we talked about the 600i. Do you expect a ship to reveal before CitizenCon? No, it'll be at CitizenCon. There are 4 unannounced ships on the roadmap. So very traditionally, we get 1 at CitizenCon and we get 3 at IAE. But Algared will tell you as well, the only consistent thing about CIG is how inconsistent they are. So we could get 3 at CitizenCon and 1 at AIE, or 2 at both. So they always change it up on us to keep us guessing. But traditionally, that's what happens. And traditionally, it's usually either the capital or the large. So to give you an idea, 2 of the ones we got previously was we got a Hammerhead and we got a Pioneer at CitizenCon. And
we also got Polaris at CitizenCon. Because I got the book. I could be wrong.
Can't remember, to be honest with you. Algared's been so damn long. But then the other thing was like, so if they gave us the capital at CitizenCon, we got the large at AIE, and then if we got the large, we got the capital at AIE. So they tend to do one, they don't tend to do a smaller one. It tends to be a bigger one.
Yeah.
And then when they start AIE, they tend to kick it off with the smallest one first.
Yeah. And things have been changing. Like the last few years, it seems that they went more for those 2 big sales in the year. So they kind of funneled everything into those 2 big sales. And same with the concept ships. They kind of bookend the sales. So you kind of get these new ships splattered throughout with big thing at the end. So will they do something for CitizenCon? Maybe.
Also with the leaks, it looked not the leaks. Sorry, there was a they posted it up and then took it back down. They had a ship showdown PTV that was for free. So it looks like everyone's getting a grey cat for free.
Nice.
Which will be really nice.
That's a bone to vote to everyone after they deliberately broke the ship showdown to stop another upset.
Paul and I were talking about that, and it's been passed on to CIG. We were not happy that they stopped that. But we were like, you ruined our fun. But they were really worried. They didn't want a repeat of the MPUV. But the thing is, they didn't learn their lesson. Last year, they made so much money off the MPUV. They sold buckets of those MPUVs because it was so cheap. Everyone could buy one, right? And so they're realizing there is they didn't realize, that's the problem. But we thought they would learn that there is a
value in microtransactions. Not everything has to be
volume. You make it up in volume, you know. And how many people do you see going around with the blue MPUV? Like almost everyone I know has got one. So, but not everyone's going to have. Even if you chuck it up to the prices, right? Not everyone's going to go out and buy the prices because one, they either have it, or two, it's just that much more expensive. And if you look at the last 4 ships, what's the cheapest one? We had the Scorpius, MSR, Carrack, and I'm forgetting
quad bike. The quad bike? The quad?
No, I'm talking about the last 4 in the ship showdown.
Oh, okay.
Was man, I'm having a brain fart moment. MSR, Carrack, Scorpius, and I believe it was the Pisces, right? So the Pisces would be the cheapest. So yeah. Another shit showdown. Okay. So yeah,
it becomes a tongue twister after a while. To say ship, not.
Yes.
Next question.
Yeah. So long story short, it changes the volume. Is what I'm trying to get at. Anyway.
Yeah, I certainly do think that. It would have been nice to see that. The only problem I can see with the PTV, having got to that, is that the PTV does not allow you at present to use it as a LTI token.
Well,
because you can't CC from it.
I don't see a lot of people going out to buy those ships to get the skins. Because most people that have already got them, they get them for free. So to me, you're almost better to vote in, newer ships or different ships, because then you're encouraging people to go outside the purview. All it shows CIG, and it is a marketing tool, is what are the most popular ships. But again, I guess it steers new players towards that. I'd have to analyze that. That's actually a bit of a tough one. Anyway, next question. You just said. Sorry,
next question is from Monster AV, and they say
no,
opinions on a capital refinery ship. Sorry, that was last week.
It's Ted Weddlebow, and then does the 600 life swapping between the tourist and exploration module, is that still a thing or no longer a thing? Actually, that is. When we were looking at that pack last night, Algared, that was a thing, wasn't it? On that $15,000 pack, it came with one 600i and it had both modules. So yes, that is a thing, and you could use that pack to prove that point.
Cascadian has a question.
That's the one.
They say,
yep.
If you were to get a heavy vehicle, would you rather it to be combat or non-combat role? I vote for heavy ground miner.
Yeah, I would. I think both Algared and I would be non-combat. We're a little bit over combat at the moment. I think we are. Most of you would agree we're very saturated with combat.
And yes, I know we've only really got the Tonk as a combat vehicle. But even the
whole Ballista series and the Spartan and the Centurion.
Okay, true. I just blocked them from my memory.
Conveniently, yeah.
And I suppose even the Ursa is combat because, in a sense, it's an armored troop carrier of a sort. So, but I'd like to see more utility. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see a medical van. I'd like to see a repair. I'd like to see
big one for me is
I'd like to see salvage.
Big one for me is a fire truck, because being in atmosphere, fire is going to be very different to how it is in space. So you can't like you're probably not going to get a fire truck or a fire ship in atmosphere, but you'll probably get some kind of similar to that and we talked about that, is more like a decompression rescue vehicle. So people that are trapped inside something that's decompressed and they've got a shorter period of time to rescue them and then maybe resuscitate them. So it comes in and it just like clamps over a hole and reseals it temporarily so they can get people out or something like that.
Or has its boarding module or whatever you want to call it, the hatch, kind of latch over the opening so they actually form a seal so you can actually go in and out of a ship. But yep.
So I don't know if that'll happen. I don't know if that'll be a thing, but the fire truck I think is definitely be a thing. But we'll see.
Yep.
Next question.
Stangroper says for attention, check out Disco's last Twitch stream. Well worth a listen to. He was very engaged with chat. Also, some Star Citizen content.
Yeah, I did hear about that from a few people, actually. He was talking about a whole range of different things. So, yeah, I did hear about it.
So, yep, worth having a check out if you haven't done. So, I'll have to do that myself.
Rashugi. Question. What ship sales do you think will be going on during CitizenCon? So, I did actually talk about this on Captain's Table. And I talked about the 4 ships that I'm expecting. So I'll let you go first, Algared. What are the 4 ships you're expecting for CitizenCon and the 3 at AIE?
I'd like to see some form of capital ship. I know we say it every time.
Yep.
So there is that Anvil Polaris-sized ship that has been teased for weeks
what Paul and I said
or years and years. Yep. Well, we also talked about it
on the
ourselves.
Law podcast, didn't we?
On the Law podcast. So it has been that Anvil ship has been teased for years and years and years. We know in Law that they're doing something on the Killian fields that's like that. You know, what's the shipbuilding yards in Star Trek? Not Star Trek, in Star Wars. You know, the main. But Killian is equivalent to those main shipyards in Star Wars. It's equivalent, it's equivalent to the main shipyards in Star Trek or any of those places.
I'll just look at you and like you're crazy because I have no idea what you're talking about. But that's fine. Are you talking about the ones on Jedi Fallen Order on that planet where they're like cutting them up to return them into other ships?
No. There is actually a Google it later. But yeah, there is a space time kind of space dock type main shipbuilding area in the Star Trek lore.
Okay.
And that is what Killian is for Star Citizen. It's where the main military
Corellia. You said Corellia. Yep.
So and that's where
and in Star Trek it's Utopia Planitia.
Yep. And so in Star Citizen, Anvil have been working with the Navy for years now on Killian, building something. And you don't build fighters. There, you build the capitals. That's where as Paul would say, the Excalibur's built. It's where the Javelins get built. It's where, well, one of the places. And I'm pretty certain it'd be one of the places where Idris is built. Because we also know Idrises are built at Shanghai on Earth. There you go.
Naked Truth Gaming in chat is talking about he was talking to someone at a BarCon. What does it say? I was at a bar, Citizen, and they were talking about the Caterpillar and the endless abilities of the modules. And that is something we talk about when I talk about the Caterpillar. But it's not endless. They did show off, 11 or 12 different modules? But
they're thinly and endless. And just because there were 11 modules, or so, because there were 4 middle sections and an end section. And every Caterpillar needs to have the end section, so you got 4 in the middle. So just the number of mixing and matching you could have.
You were talking to a CIG staff member about the Caterpillar? Naked Truth Gaming? Wow, okay. He says Chad McKinney, so I assume that's who he was talking to. But yeah, if you're talking to a staff member, well, then that's awesome. That just reconfirms what we've been saying for a while, so that's really cool. I like that. The Caterpillar is 2.5 hours. Oh, man. That's awesome. But the Caterpillar for me is my favorite daily driver. It has been for a long time. The drawbacks are obviously it's a bit slower and it's Drake, so it's not as armored, but just that the amount of modules, it's got more than any other game because it's technically got 2 modules, the front and the middle section. So we'll see what happens.
But yeah, and yeah, so it's got 2 base modules. You've got that front one, and then you've got the ones in between, and then you've got the actual cab kind of back section engine room of the Caterpillar as well. But those middle sections, they're the ones you'd be swapping out. And that gives so much gameplay. It's one of the reasons we do. It's one of the big ships one of the smaller ships we often recommend. If people are saying, what's a daily drive? What's a really good daily driver?
It has gone up in price a fair bit.
It has.
But I also think that price reflects its modularity. And one thing you'll notice is a lot of the modular ships are more expensive. Redeemer, Vanguard, Caterpillar, they're all kind of getting to that upper roof of that, none of them are at 3. Well, actually, was it 295 for the Harbinger, 325 for the Redeemer, and 330 for the Caterpillar. So they're all getting a little bit too high for their britches, if you know what I mean. So,
As to the other ships, I expect to see at CitizenCon. I think there'll be a vehicle of some form.
Agreed.
But
I said, just to be real quick, that's that utility truck. I chucked that in there. So,
but in terms of the large ships, I could see them doing something with somewhere a salvage ship between the Prospector and not the Prospector, the Vulture and the Reclaimer.
My favorite part right there, and Chad will agree with me, as you talked, we could hear you thinking and your voice was actually lagging as you spoke. It was like, does not compute, processing what I am thinking as I am speaking. Chad will know what I'm talking about. Someone in chat will say the same thing, because I guarantee you they just saw what I just saw. It was like, trying to think, delayed. It was quite funny to watch, but yeah. Anyway,
now I do have to ask Naked Truth. What did he have to say about animal gameplay? And no, we're not talking Goebbels. You aren't people who are being rude in your nasty thoughts. But what did he have to say? I'd be interested to know what Chad McKinney had to say about animal gameplay.
Yeah. So tell us in chat, and we'll read that in a second. So yeah, I agree with you on the salvage one.
And the other one, I don't care. Because
I kind of at the time I said you've got to generally look at the roadmap. So we know we've got salvage and cargo, but at the time I couldn't see another cargo ship. But after we've done the animal stuff now, and we kind of look back at the 400i, there may be a cargo ship that is environmentally based.
Sealed.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
But keep going. I'll finish your idea.
Oh, I'd finished.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But they solved the 400i as an explorer, as to kind of compete with the Corsair and the Aquila. And that environmental room type thing really fits well with an explorer vehicle of gathering material and storing it.
Yep.
So I would expect, if anything, I'd expect to see that type of technology in an Aquila. I fully expect at some point we'll see that midsection of the Aquila get a Phoenix treatment with a deck and rooms above and the hangar below. So I'd expect to see it in there. I'd hope to see your ability to do something like that on the Corsair, and maybe that's the difference between them. The Corsair just has the living areas. The Aquila has living areas and has storage areas, and the 400i has that, but it's for a smaller crew, and so you've got the balance between the three of them. But I could see or we get another ship that does that. So yeah. And your 4 were?
I've kind of said them as you've gone along, and I just remember the other one because at the time apparently people are saying the Crucible's now been removed from the roadmap, but at the time I was like, well, maybe another repair ship, like the medium repair ship might be there, but that would be a concept for down the line. But that's just what I'm expecting. So that it's kind of interesting to know that you and I kind of line up in that regard. I think the only other one Like I think it might be a utility truck. I don't know what vehicle. What vehicle do you expect? You didn't really elaborate on that. So, what do you think the vehicle? I just went cargo because you got cargo and you've got salvage.
I think we've talked about it in terms of when you look at what the mule does, and the mule can't act as a forklift, and I've frozen. Dear me.
Yep. Right, take it with pics now, guys. Print screen right now. Print screen.
That hasn't happened for a while.
Yeah, well, glad you're having the same issues as I am today, but yeah.
Let's see if that fixed it. Nope. Oh well. I'm frozen. Suck it up, people.
Did you turn it off and on again, or what?
I did turn it off and on.
Sorry, you'll fix it in a second. That's fine. All right, we'll go on to the next. We've done like 4 questions. Who's the next? Man, we've literally got so many questions now. This is ridiculous.
It happens. I'm back.
Here we go. Monster Avy asks opinions on a capital refinery expanse mixed with the Kraken industrial carrier. That totally could be a thing. We have actually talked about a capital refinery, haven't we, Algared? So.
Yep. And it's even possible. It's conceivable because I can remember when they were talking about outposts and stations. Todd, I think it was Todd Pappy, was saying basically planetary outpost is basically the same as a station. It just takes up the same space. We can put the same things there. It's just on land, not in space.
Yep.
So your capital refinery could be the outpost we saw recently on the ISC. By a capital outpost and a minor refinery, and that's equivalent to a capital refinery ship. So they could do that.
I'll disagree with you on that. I think we're going to have land outposts as well as ships.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not saying we won't. I'm just saying.
As to the comment of the Kraken part, I would probably just chuck out there that they're trying to get a capital ship for at least every manufacturer. So if the Kraken's already got one, RSI has kind of already got one in the Orion. We've got this Consolidate outlined with the Pioneer. We've got the Odyssey with the MISC. We are starting to double up there. Crusader doesn't have an industry large one. That might be a possibility. Do you see them going?
Argo need the capital one.
Do you, just quickly though, but do you see Crusader doing refining? I kind of don't.
I could see them doing gas refinery.
Well, gas. Well, yeah, with Crusader. Okay,
They're literally stationed above a gas giant.
Yeah,
If you're not harvesting a resource that's right there.
Well, refining's going to do ore and liquid and gas, so it'll do all three because salvage, mining ore, and liquid and gas. All 3 of those professions feed into refinery. So the refinery will do it all. Refining by Crusader, it could be a possibility, but could it be done by Drake? I guess we don't really have an industrial one at that size from Drake, so it is a possibility. It does kind of lean up with the messiness factor of Drake, so I could see that as well. But anything's possible. You and I have said that before. But visually, it looks pretty cool if you think about it, like a Drake oil rig. I can kind of see that in a way, like a flying oil rig. I could see that. Something different.
Probably my the one criticism I'd have had of the ISC where they showed us the refinery outpost.
Mm-hmm.
It looked pristine. It looked like Korea.
Yeah.
Like Korea looks awesome. It like what they've shown of Korea security outpost. It looks great. But as I said in the stream, it for a place that's constantly being fought over, it looks too pristine.
Yeah, I don't know what ship from Argo would get. As I said, actually, last week you talked about that. Yeah, the capital prison ship would be Argo because of the orange jumpsuit. So yeah, Argo probably
that'd be a Hurston ship, wouldn't it?
I don't know. What is it?
Hurston prison barge.
HMS Old Man. HMS Seal Clubber.
No, it'd be the HPS, the Hurston prison ship.
Hurston prison ship Seal Clubber. But yeah, I don't know. You can sit there and play with the different manufacturers, and you can visually see almost every single one of them looks really cool in a different way. So,
But to go back to the question you asked me, the vehicle probably I could see that a cargo vehicle, because we know the mule can do the cargo, but it can't raise the stock up. So a forklifty type one that could actually stack the cargo.
I've just read the next question.
Especially with cargo refractor coming at some point, we do expect that to be there.
So, I don't know if I should say it here, but I am going to say something. Oh, yeah, I will. All right, so MPCDN, because his name's just made up of random letters, so I'm just going to call it MP. MP asks, what happened to the show with cargo in it? Yeah, I think that's very telling. I don't think we're getting a full cargo refactor. I think we are getting partial things.
Yep.
I think, like, because one thing you might notice too is when they were doing the refinery ship with the reclaimer, those cargo crates were not snapping to the deck. They were put there by boxes and stuff. So how do you officially snap?
It was just being spat out, and then you were stacking them.
How do you officially snap a cargo container to a cargo grid as a player? How do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, is there a lineup system? Have they worked that out? They probably haven't worked that out yet. So I think the cargo refactor we're getting is a little bit across the way. Hey, Badges, you can drop in if you want, bud. Oh, you have. Open your big mouth. How you doing? He's in here. He's just not talking. There he is.
Hello, ladies and gents. How are we?
Good, man.
I do apologise for sounding awful. It's because I feel awful.
Yeah, you have been home sick this week, haven't you? So yeah.
Yeah, I'm unwell. Just the flu. Just your common garden variety flu.
That starts with C and ends with O.
No. No.
No, that's jail at the moment, I think.
Actually, we might ask you that, Badges. What ships are you expecting at CitizenCon and AIE?
So,
if you've been listening.
Yes. Good question.
Well, what would you like to see?
That is a very good question.
A helicopter. He wants to see a helicopter. That's what that noise was.
My brain is not quite there yet. Give me 5 minutes.
He wants a helicopter.
Come back to me now. A helicopter.
Yeah,
a Waka.
Yeah. So I do think that is very telling at the last ISC that they didn't show
I'm not asking what ships do you want.
So it's very telling about the cargo refactor because they didn't show anything. And so notice how there was no update for the cargo refactor. I think that's kind of telling. And yeah, good spot there, MP. Misfit asks, question, should we be getting more reasons to trade between players with the release of the banner management? Yes. 100%. So you can actually sell stuff to other players. The one part of that is I don't think the shops will be working in the banner matchman's release, and they definitely won't working with NPCs at the release. But it would be cool down the line if you could sell stuff to other players. So, hey, I found this missile launcher in my bunker mission, and you put it in your weapon shop, and a new player comes along and you go, hey, want to buy my weapon launcher for half price? You know, a little bit more than you can sell it for, but a little bit less than they can buy it for. You know?
I'm pretty certain. I'm pretty certain people are already doing this because I know in my org there's a channel for buying and selling, and so people say, I'm looking for blah blah blah. I've got blah blah blah. And so people are doing that already, and I imagine that if we're doing it, I imagine every other org's doing it. So. Next question, EDS Kepler. Maybe something up to terraform a place, make it flat. So maybe a land flattening tool or a preparation tool.
I question that because it.
I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, Kepler.
Yeah, I think something like that might be too powerful. Because if you can do that, you could technically stuff with art assets. So you could come up to someone's base and just like eat the earth out completely from underneath their stuff. I'm going to put that as a no, because if you're
and then you end up with really
Yeah, because you've also noticed how all the outposts are built on stilts. They already thought about all this, so you can build on hills and stuff. That's why they've built all the outposts on poles and stuff like that. They've tried to make it so you can build anywhere, and they wouldn't have done that if they could just make the place flat. So what they've done is opposite of what. It's in opposite. I don't know what the word is, but it conflicts with what you're thinking. So yeah. Dawn Stealer asks, need something with a big tractor beam, but that's ways away. I think Atlas flatbed could be good with a smaller tractor beam. Well, actually, SRV is in construction right now. We saw a preview of it. One of the sneak peeks in the last couple of weeks. I would argue that it's probably the patch after this one. So it's not too far away, because obviously we've also seen the bigger hand one as well, haven't we? So I don't think it's too far away, Algared. I'd say in the next 6 months.
But I suppose a land vehicle with a tractor beam, which is, that would work as a salvage recovery vehicle.
Well, it's very similar to my flatbed truck or utility truck ideas. So yeah.
Ken Claudio says with a super chat. So thank you very much for that super chat. A new ship starter package at CitizenCon with a 10-year insurance at
Oh man, I don't know about Starship. This has come up a few times because we did a poll, didn't we? We did a poll, and it was very clear to the chat here that something. What was it? Freelancer cutlass size, and we said Crusader. I think is what we ended up.
Freelancer.
We did a couple. We did a couple of polls, and I think it was Crusader that was Freelancer cutlass size was the one that we would like to see in that starting arena, though. Originally the Dragonfly was more like an Iron Man suit, and it turned into that bike. I do think there is potentially a Drake starter. I would theoretically like to see a starter from almost every single profession. I don't know if you feel the same, or at least into the sub $100 mark. I would like to see a ship from everyone.
Yeah.
So who does that leave?
Yeah. So when you say starter miner, you're not talking the prospector, which is an advanced starter.
No. Yeah. Advanced profession starter. So yeah.
Yeah.
But we've got the Hull A.
I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more.
So what about Argo?
Yeah.
Argo doesn't have
one.
one.
I'd like to see more starter ships.
I think we're getting a big lag issue, Algared.
I think we've got a bit of lag today.
Yeah, I think we do. So Argo and Drake don't have one. There's definitely.
Perfectly said that because you both just said it at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, you are lagging behind me then. Just so you're aware, because that was not at the same time for me. You were massively behind, but that's fine. We'll just persist. So yeah, Algared, what other manufacturers besides Argo and Drake could you see that it's under $100 that we don't currently have, or is there any others that I've forgotten?
Kruger. You do have the P50, the P72, P52. The problem with those is that they don't have a quantum drive. But give them a small quantum drive with nav, and they would be an ideal, very small starter ship. Someone just said in Daniel Grego in chat said MISC, and they don't have a ship. But their smallest ship is the Freelancer.
Hull A.
Oh no, the Hull A. Yeah. Sorry, you're right. The Hull A is there.
What Can said though is
but
correct.
I don't
Crusader.
think the Hull A is sold with a starter pack.
No, it's not. But yeah,
Crusader.
Also, that Hull A though is quite a substantial ship as a starter. Like it's carrying a metric shit ton more cargo than the other starters. Let's be honest. What would be the next closest? That would be probably the Nomad.
Probably. Let's have a look.
Just so we know, so everyone knows how I feel right now. It's like talking to Algorithm in 1980s, and I'm waiting for the satellite to get across to him and come back. That's what it feels like. It's this complete 10-second delay. It's really bizarre.
It is. Oh, it is really frustrating. It's probably the worst we've ever had.
I've never seen it like
seriously
this.
is. It's
it might
for those people who are saying, yeah, neither have I. For those people. For those people saying we're talking over each other and being really rude, no, we're not trying to be rude at all. There is literally a lag. I'll talk in a gap, and Execute's suddenly talking, and he'll wait for me, and same thing. So,
yep. So, but I'll
Go
have to
Execute.
lead though, because you're the one with the lag. So I'll just try to lead as much as possible. So, next question from Dawn Stiller. Need something with a big. No, we did that one already. Axis asks Grey Cat mini truck. Yeah, I think we addressed that when it came up before on stream. But yeah, I could see that like the what was it, the Tesla self-driving truck or whatever it was. I'd see something like that. What about you, Algared?
It goes back to the vehicle. I'd like to see a vehicle that does the forklifty type stuff. Something that is going to help with the loading of vehicles, something that will help with the unloading of vehicles, because we know that cargo refactor is coming. A very small vehicle with a forklift would be really useful in a reclaimer when you're moving those boxes around and stacking them.
So the next question, Algared, has a really interesting idea. Comes from Monster AV, and they say a new platform for the utility vehicles in general, like the Atlas for the military. That's a really clever idea. I like that. So much like the Atlas, you get that utility truck, but you can change the thing on the back. That's actually not a bad concept. And yeah, Grey Cat would be maybe a good choice for that. I'm trying to think of Argo could do that. I don't know. Anything else? Any other manufacturers for that one, or how do you think of the idea?
Look, I'm always happy to see any new ship that comes, or any new concept or idea that comes. The only ones I don't like are things like the Cutlass Steel, where you've already got you've already got several ships in that line. You've already said that the company over arms their ships, and then you bring out another ship with a shiny skin and you put more weapons on it on a ship that's already over gunned, and you put massive seats on it on a ship that's not supposed to have life support to support all those, and you haven't explained where the life support is for that ship. And so to me, ships like the Steel don't make sense at all. But just to go back to the question on the starter ships, the ships that we've got with starter packs at the moment are the Aurora, the Titan, the Mustang, the Arrow, the Pisces, the 100i, the Nomad, the Cutlass Black, the Hornet, the Freelancer, the Constellation.
They do have Reliant packs that crop up from time to time too. I just remember that's also MISC as well. Didn't even think of that one until just then.
Yep. But they're not starter packs. So these are the packs that are specifically...
They actually called the Reliant when it first came out an advanced starter. That was the first time we ever heard that phrase.
Yeah, they did call it an advanced starter. Yep. But what I was just going there, looking at the store, was all the packs that are listed as starter packs. So that's the game, that's a ship, the game, and some insurance. So if you're after starter ships, and you've got everything covered there. You've got a small multi-crew ship, and you've got lots of single ships. But looking at that range, the only one I could really think that would go in there would be the MISC, not Santoki either. The
Nox? Nope.
The Reliant.
Reliant, yep. So Dean Store asks, winch vehicle to take advantage of those rope physics getting into the new caves. So ropes that for a player and ropes for a vehicle, I think, are two different things. When they have the tractor beams, and if you think about how tractor beams work and they simplify things because of gamification, it's a lot more to get ropes working because they have to include gravity. and a few other things. So they are more likely to not do that with vehicles. It's actually like believe it or not, one of the reasons they use a lot of that future tech stuff, because it simplifies what they have to do. And that's one of the reasons they do that. So I don't see that happening.
So the question is, will your tractor beam be able to suck you, lift you up out of a pit? Because at the moment, if you're in a place with gravity, it doesn't do that.
Yeah. So right now, that's a really good example, Algared. So if you're trying to pick something out of a pit with a tractor beam, it just comes up and over. But if you're doing it with a rope, it's got to be kind of like pulled up the side. You've got all the physics of that has to be worked out. It's so much more extra work. It's ridiculous. Just for all these little niche. It has all these little niche situations. But when it's a tractor beam, it's always just up and over. Simple. So yeah.
So I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop and go. Badgers, have you given some thought to those 4 ships you'd like to see in CitizenCon?
Oh God, you didn't tell me I had to find 4.
Well, there is 4 unannounced on the roadmap.
Okay.
So I would say a vehicle.
Do we know their
and then a
ships or
small
are they vehicles?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're expecting 1 vehicle and then like a small, medium, and large, because that's typically what they do these days.
Gotcha. I'm probably going to go counter to not yourselves necessarily, but to a lot of people. I'd like to see stuff focused away from combat. I think we're good on combat for the time being. It might be nice to see something else that they're planning on doing. Maybe the medium dedicated data runner.
Okay.
As opposed to like things like the MSR and that has data running within it, but it's also cargo and everything else. That might be quite good fun. I'd love to see some sort of ground-based RV, bed, life support, maybe basic things to get you going.
So like like an ambulance.
No, more so. For the planets where, let's say, for example, you've got a lot of tree cover, like huge trees, like a jungle planet. So you can only land in certain areas. You take the vehicle and drive off, and the vehicle becomes your life support as opposed to the ship.
So the G12.
Is that an RV or is that just a? So
the G12 has a closed-in cabin, and it's basically like a Jeep or a Cyclone, but it's a closed cabin.
Does it have a bed and stuff? Can you basically live in it?
Oh, there's no bed in it, no. Oh, so like RV, right? Sorry, you meant like a camper van.
Oh, you want a mobile home, right? Okay.
Yeah, you want a mobile home. So we don't. I didn't know what you meant by RV. I was like totally thrown until you said camper van. Then I knew exactly what you meant. Okay, I'm with you now.
Something from Tumble would be cool that like links into the Ranger as well. So maybe it has a dedicated space for the Ranger within it.
Oh,
so
news
you can go off and do that.
Just in, they've announced the Drake slump. Coming to.
Huge.
Just a hammock. It's just a hammock, and the chair is made out of tires. It's just like 2 tires and then one on an angle.
I'd like to go something. I'd like to see them start going into the carrier space for the large, because you guys know, I know people go Liberator. I don't consider the Liberator to be filling that. So something smaller than the Kraken. Maybe for a couple of bits and pieces, but something that is dedicated for that. So it's got at least some refuel, basic repair, crew quarters as well as crew for the ship. You've got air crew for the ships that it holds. Something like that might be quite nice. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping maybe some industry ships that are maybe science, because science seems to be massively. Your science choices are one of the Reliance, I think.
Yep.
And the Endeavour, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So
So Algared's and my picks have become more grounded over the last few years, because we've noticed that whatever's on the roadmap, the ships seem to line up with the roadmap. So the reason me and Algared have picked things like salvage, repair, and cargo is because that's what they're working on at the moment, or they're about to work on. Almost verbatim, Algared and mine lined up. So we had a cargo vehicle, a medium salvage, a kind of medium to large salvage, medium to large repair, and the capital ship we looked at was the Anvil one that's been rumored for like 3 or like me and Aaron have been hearing it for like 6 years at this point. It's beyond a joke. So it's coming eventually, but we just don't know when, do we?
Yeah, exactly.
And that could be a carrier. It could also be that one without a carrier, so.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. No. The Windlord, not the Liberator. The Liberator. No. Not a carrier. Not a carrier. Not a carrier. It's a shipping ship. It's a removals van
the Liberator
for vehicles.
Not a carrier.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yes.
Yeah.
Because listening to you guys
could use
talk
it
about
that in a pinch. You can use it as a carrier in a pinch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Badgers, go.
No, you're all good, mate. You're all good. This lag is good fun, isn't it?
It's hilarious. It's hilariously awkward.
Yeah. It's awful because it's like I've given him enough time. It's fine. He won't talk shit. He's talked. So yeah,
exactly.
Listening to you guys talk about like the beginner ship, I'd love to see some sort of industry beginning ship that switches out the module that changes what it can do. So maybe it's one small salvage laser, and if you switch that out for a mining laser or something else, so it becomes like a jack of all trades industry ship that's not as capable as the Vulture, not as capable as the Prospector, but goes into that kind of, almost like, but not quite, the MPUV being able to switch out modules and just be able to become different things. That'd be quite cool to see as well.
Because there was talk about something similar to that with a Terraform because of the utility mounts. Like they're like, I remember when the Q&A came out, people were like, oh, can I put a mining laser on the utility mount and stuff like that? Can I put a tractor beam on the utility mount and stuff like that? So that could be really interesting if they ended up doing something like that with the Terraform. So you've still got the scanner on one and then you've got like a tractor beam on the other. So can you imagine you use the Terraform in such a way that it's got like an ore scanner on it, and then basically it tractor beams rocks back to an Orion or something like that. That could be, is that kind of similar to what you're envisioning? Or because I just remember like you just triggered that in my head when you brought it up.
Yeah, something that does very little else. It's got a couple of SCU space for whatever it's going to store from the salvage or from the mining. But yeah, exactly that, and does very little else. And it's literally just like you were saying,
but smaller.
An industry starter, where they just, rather than having to own different ships to try all of these things, they literally just switch out whatever it is, be it a module, be it, a utility mount, whatever.
Just addressing chat real quick. Yeah, when my camera went off then, it like did a weird green screen thing. The whole screen on the camera went green. And then, so obviously that's why my head looked weird. Anyway. Next question then. So EDS.
But I'd like to see that. I would really like to see that as well. I would really like to see something like Badgers was talking as well. Something MPVU size with a quantum or jump drive, so it can actually move and do stuff. But if you give a starter ship that's really limited on its cargo space, but it gives you the ability to swap out the utility mount, so it can do mining, can do salvage, can do. That gives your new players a ship which they can try everything. And then it's so small, you do need to expand and go elsewhere. So
kind of what the Caterpillar is, but lower down the run. So you're getting that versatility. And so they, because that's kind of what I believe the Caterpillar is. You go into it because you don't know what you want to do, and then you go out. So you go, so they talked about medical beds on it or medical modules. So you basically try that, and then you go, all right, I really like medical. I'm going to go into the Polo.
Yep.
No, I get it. All right. Next question.
That would be an ideal ship.
Idius Kepler says hover surfboard. I could so see that as a thing because it'll allow you to transfer between the water and the land, and brings up other things like hovercraft. Well, I guess we've kind of got hover bikes, but you know what I mean, like an actual hovercraft that rides the land and rides the water. I don't know. Your thoughts on hover surfboard?
Do you know? I think
pictures of Marty McFly now.
Yeah, I was going to say it better be pink, or I'm going to be really unhappy.
Literally, I could see that. That has a genuine game use in it, because when the cities get bigger, they've been talking about letting us even ride, as you mentioned before, actually reminded me of it, riding the Dragonfly around the streets of Area 18.
Yep.
It's a quick travel gimmick that's in keeping with the game. So rather than you having to walk or sprint the whole thing, you literally could be something you attach to the outside of your pack in a weapon slot, or it gets its own slot, and you literally just go, pop it out, zip around the streets, get to where you're going. That's actually a really kind of...
So my brain went weird places, because that's what my brain's like.
God.
So I went, yep, okay, so you could, I'm in Art Corp just, going along on my skateboard, and then I went to, Old Man Hurston in a utility scooter, and then I went, no, it's Old Man Hurston, and he's crazy, and it's like cyberpunk, so it's actually Old Man Hurston in an exosuit. Walking down the road. Just, gotta go to my meeting!
Mecha Hurston with a walking frame.
Oh God!
Yeah, but it is a walking frame, but it's just a cyber kill suit.
But I could see them if they did that, selling skins for vehicles, just like Star Wars: The Old Republic does. How many people collect the vehicles and the for traveling around the space stations? How many people collect the different vehicles and the different skins for their vehicles, like it's
hover rollerblades.
The outfits, it's scary.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, I could see that. And we know they're not going to. I doubt they're going to let us do the vehicles anymore because of Area 18. when they first put the grey cats in Area 18, and people were going, yeah.
Well, if it's just really a faster form of walking, though, I think that could be a thing. Like I said, rollerblades and skateboards, and maybe they're more expensive, or you got to get a license to use them. I don't know. They'll think of something. All right, Sandgroper asks from Twitch, still hanging out to see hover tech being used in some of the bigger ground vehicles, not just hover bikes. That's actually interesting, because Algared actually says he doesn't want to see any more hover vehicles earlier.
So what's the tech on the Prowler? What's the...
That's hover. That's hover.
So it exists on the Prowler. It's just not in the game.
Yeah.
So it will be.
So the way it kind of was described is when it gets to the ground, it can kind of hover like a hover tank, but it's got a turret on it. And the way we kind of envision with those air shields, how they talked about how it uses its arms for cover, so when the troops jump out, so it's like it could actually somewhat, go with the troops. It kind of lands and turns into like a mini APC that kind of helps them go in, but then you're really at the huge risk that if it gets damaged, you can't get out of there. So it's a risk versus reward mechanic. I can see why they've done it. It's a very common thing in games. But you wouldn't stay to fight a Nova tank, put it that way. You'd be like, oh shit, do you guys get in, or I'm leaving, that type of thing. So
yeah, but that answers the question at the moment, because the Prowler, you either go into landing mode, which the blades that are supposed to be the cover, the wingtips effectively, stay undeployed, or you go into VTOL and then they deploy and they branch out and provide cover for your troops that are disembarking. And that would make sense if you could go into a hover mode that held you a meter or so off the deck. That would mitigate, you're not going to suddenly just damage yourself because you've stooped into the floor and your nose plant or whatever else.
But
yeah. And
a hoverboard actually makes sense in lore.
Really? Okay.
Because the Tavaran used them as part. Yeah, well, if you read the story Instrument of Surrender, where the Tavaran sneak aboard
gamers don't read.
The UEC ship. Well, you need to watch Law Citizen podcast and learn about the Tavaran. But the Tavaran in Instrument of Surrender sneak aboard, and they were renowned for doing this. This was one of the tactics they always used to do. They'd sneak aboard the ship, send some saboteurs on there to wreck the systems. But one of the ways they got there is they'd actually have a small little device which they'd literally use to hover from their ship to get to the exit point. So, so the idea of a hoverboard is not out of the realms of possibility. It does fit within the lore of the things they've had. So, yeah. Tavaran tech being
the other thing like
requisitioned
those
or stolen by the other.
Those other things like rollerblades and skateboards and stuff like that would give really cool points of interest to, like having, you know, they go through an area they're not meant to go through. It's like stupid teens, and they, you know, the cops like go after them and stuff like that. So having little dynamic things that happen in different areas would be kind of really cool that the AI could do, because it's a part of that AI's routine that he's like a rebellious teen or whatever, and he just doesn't give a shit about the law, and you know, and a girl on her hoverblades or whatever, and the cops are chasing them or whatever. I just think that'd be kind of cool, but, you know, maybe I'm wrong, you know, and they knock something over and the janitor's got to clean it up or whatever.
Or hoverblades on the racetrack. So you have your rollerblading track.
Yep, true.
So you take over the PTV track and you do hoverblading or rollerblade, you know.
Different things
rollerblade
in different places.
Sport.
Well, I think that will be a thing. If you look at racing, I think they're going to try and do as many different events and places as possible. So they may have, you know, the kind of go-kart track in one area, ship racing in another. I do think that will be a thing. So you're probably right there, Algared. They may have like a hover racing thing in the future. But I'm not saying that that's where we're going to go, but I do think that's a really simply untapped thing that they could do. Plus, it also means you can move quicker in the cities, because let's be honest, for me right now, one of the biggest drags is just the trains just take so long to get anywhere. And let's be honest, most people don't set up shop on a main planet. They set it on the space station above because it's just far less walking, you know? So I think down the line, speeding that on-planet transaction up might be the way to go, but we'll see. What about you, Badges? Do you reckon that's what will happen? Or?
Well, most people don't walk; they run. But yeah,
yeah, I think as a quick travel tool, it's definitely viable. I've got to say, Unknown Guardian suggestion.
Yep,
I like that.
Yeah, that came up earlier, but do you want to read it out so you don't sound like an out of context idiot?
So, Unknown Guardian. The question is simply one word. Sandcrawler ? I like the idea. It's interesting because you'd have to have enough gameplay to justify sitting on one planet and not moving. But the idea of vehicles that are so big that they can't be shifted from planet to planet.
My brain went to a different place. My brain went to you drunk crawling through the sand.
Oh, well, yes.
Oh, of course the camera freezes right there. Oh.
Vengeance is sweet.
Yeah, it is. No pictures. No pictures. Okay, no pictures. No copy pasting. Yeah, thanks.
Today,
snipping tool.
Today, the joys of the stream. We've got the camera. We've got the lag.
Yeah.
We've got everything today.
Yeah. We have.
I know. I actually have had comments like, "Don't replace your camera." It's been the highlight of my entertainment, just all the faces I make and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It just feels a bit. It does just feel a bit unprofessional.
I have seen the comments
when I go on other shows though, when it freezes and stuff. So it's like, so yeah, I will have to get around to getting a new one. I honestly thought I'd fixed it. I will say, up until then, it was going quite well. But it is getting more rapid now. It basically in 2 hours froze twice, which is pretty good. Basically once an hour. Before that, it was like every half an hour. So I don't know. It does feel a little bit better at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see. I have to press that cable in every time. But yeah, I'm just not looking forward to spending $1,000 on a camera. It's $1,000 I didn't want to spend. But yeah.
Yep, I get that feeling.
Mark Laporte asks, a cherry pick a vehicle to get to the top of objects and vehicles. That may be required actually for repair. In a way now I think about it. Unless they have, oh no, they just have arms that go up above. Yeah. I don't know. Might be needed in the future. Could it be misused to get into other people's property? Absolutely.
Yep.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I would definitely kick the can down the road type of thing.
I could see it becoming a thing just because people could use it for griefing, and so it'll become a thing.
Yeah. You were going to say, Badges?
That's my pessimism. Sorry, Badges, you were about to say?
Yeah, and this kind of, I guess, clags into my wishes for CitizenCon as well.
Mm.
How about the first of the Titan suits, which is literally a cargo shifter a la Aliens?
That would be cool.
Something enables you to move around, because that answers Mark Laporte's question about, how do you get stuff off the top objects? Well, you have this big cargo, hauler thing that you stand in and move around,
and with the cargo
get away from her, you bitch!
And being the first Titan suit, and probably being the most well-known Titan suit in all of sci-fi, that would sell like hotcakes. That is a really good point. I never thought of that.
Yep, it would.
That is a really good point. I think you might be on a winner there.
And it is the one we've always thought would be the ideal one to go with for Reclaimer, as the
we call that the cutter.
The skiff.
The cutter.
The cutter, sorry.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
it'd be ideal. It'd be an ideal cutter for Reclaimer.
That actually makes that also tracks. Actually, believe it or not, boys, that tracks with both salvage and cargo. That is, and it's a vehicle. Holy shit, that's a trifecta of everything on the roadmap. Holy shit. That actually makes a lot of sense, but then the last part is they haven't done any work on Titan suits. So they have to actually create all the Titan suit stuff to work for multiplayer, and they've never told us anything about it.
No.
That's the big kicker.
The interesting thing, where you were talking about not knowing how to attach stuff to a cargo grid, with that Titan suit, it could be a HUD overlay. So you actually go into that special mode and it tells you where to place it. So in exactly the same way as you would do it with a mission crate, you go up with this thing and you just go place over that object and it aligns it for you.
So if you think about the place command for normal cargo crates at the moment, it'd be almost like when you go to place onto a cargo grid, it's got like a snap to cargo grid mechanic. So just when you're over the cargo grid, it just or there's a way to turn snap off and on. You know what I mean? And and when it's on, it just puts it exactly. Exactly. I think that's probably what it'll be, because you have to be able to do it as just a normal person as well as a like you said, in suits and stuff. Man, I can't unsee that Titan suit now. I really can't. But like, there's a lot of work there to get that into the game. But then again, there's also like, because if you think about it, when you take a vehicle, right? So let's say we're making the mole. You would start with, say, something like the Rock and modify it. So when you are taking a Titan suit, the closest you could get to that would be a human character, would it not? So that is a lot more work, because a vehicle is just, it moves forwards, it moves backwards, and the wheels, right? When you, and I'm simplifying everything I said there, right? So please take all that with a grain of salt, because that was real simplification. But when you do it with the Titan suit, you've got, could you fake it though? You've got.
I suppose it all depends on how far the Titan suit is down the Squadron 42 pipeline.
But it opens up things like walkers and then the future that I talked about before as well. So AT-ATs, ATSTs, and War of the Worlds and stuff like that. Algared. Algared, do that. Algared, do that. Algared, real quick. If you ever want to ask a question again, you got to do it like this now, from now on. Yeah. Anyway.
And I've frozen. No, I haven't. There you go. I am lagging. Man, the lag is so bad.
Yeah, it is. It's bad.
The problem with the Titan suits is one that we've raised before, is that the only thing that we've seen, and it was going back to Squadron 42, where we've heard the boss mob. The end boss mob is a guy in a Titan suit, and so it spoke to that, and that's the only time we've ever seen or heard of it. And that's why that's why we've done it in the past, but we haven't got anything beyond that bespoke boss, which is kind of, and you've speculated that is just a cheat of building the character, building it around that that figure.
Yeah.
That's probably the only factor I've got against that. But I would love to see.
Well, if you go
love to see a Titan suit that did the cargo mover.
So, Algared,
absolutely.
This is the image, right, of the Titan suit, and the only other ones we've got are concepts of like this. But if you look at this one, open image in new tab, that does look like a boss to me. Like I can see that as a boss character. Like even the other thing that lines up with is the skull and crossbones. He looks like he's a member of those pirate. Oh, what are the guys called in Squadron 42? The pirate guys, Zayo Khan or whatever they're called. KO Khan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, and you're the law
Yeah,
guy.
I know the mob you're meaning. I can't remember the name.
Right.
I can't remember the name. I've watched the video dozens of times. I just can't remember the name.
But yeah, so that does look like a boss.
OMC.
Yeah, OMC. That's it. Yeah. So
thank you, Chris Talking.
Yeah. So that to me, you know,
OMC.
Yeah. So for me, these are. Oh god, that's tiny. That one. You know, they all fundamentally follow the same thing, but that's the only one we've ever seen completed. I think when you get back to Titan suit, like, because if you see these basic ones here, this is them prototyping basically how it's going to work. Notice how there's like a real lack of detail essentially on the outside of the suit. So that's them working out the basis of how a Titan suit's going to work. That's why it's got the person standing in it and stuff like that. This is the first functional one here. And that's the only one we've ever seen like that. We've never seen a concept for anything else. We've never seen a utility one. We've never seen anything else. But you got to remember, it's walking on legs, and because it's so much bigger for the player to actually get into it, they've got to animate all that. They've got to build all that. That's a whole system they've got to build out. Where if it's just a boss in a level, it's essentially like an animal you're putting into the game, where it's just got the animations. You don't have to actually have the control mechanisms on how to control it because it's AI driven. There's a lot. It's a lot easier to do, and so that's why it's probably in Squadron 42 because it doesn't need all those mechanics. And so again, we know Squadron 42 is driving it. So I still think that takes it back out. A concept though. Badges
it's still
could be a possibility, but going straight into game, my doubt goes right up. But I think that is how they're going to do it. They'll eventually just go, ha ha, you know, Titan suits, you know. Have we seen anything like that even remotely on the roadmap? This is me. The reason I'm talking like this because I'm trying to look for reasons for you to be correct. Just can't see it, and it sucks. So yeah, all right.
I'd love it to be correct. I'd love to see that Titan suit. You know, Ripley's cargo loader.
Yeah.
Being sold and being put in a game to tie in with cargo factor and salvage and all the rest of it. But and even having that, like you said, the overlay, so you could actually do the loading cargo and snapping into the cargo grid. It makes perfect sense. You're going, yeah. But then everything we've seen says it's not. And even the shape of I can remember them talking, and this is way back when they were looking at the shapes of it, and it was kind of taking the way the Van Duel were looking at that time and kind of saying, hey, yeah, well, we've got something that's going to match you man for man in combat. So hence the kind of thing they were looking at. And that was at a time when the Van Duel were like giants compared to humans, and so you needed a Titan suit to be able to match them 1-to-1 in combat. But yeah.
Crystal Stalking in chat says Jared confirmed recently Titan suits are not in development, so yeah, that can confirm it. Do you know what I just realized also? I was about to say, man, if they don't make a Titan suit called the Ares that's like a combat one, I'll be really annoyed, but we already have a ship called the Ares. There's actually now like 3 things that are named after Titans, so I just don't think they're going to be able to call Titan suits named after Titans. It sucks. Anyway, next question. Sean Solo asks more of a whole category here, but in regards to farming, there's a ton of vehicles need for planning, harvesting, fertilization, farm, utility tracking, etc. And what you're forgetting is gamification and the future. They will make it so it's a miracle of science. is how
Mhm.
they will answer that one.
Make it
So
good.
it'll cut a thing. It'll plant a plant. It'll be more like a robot. It won't be. They'll probably even have planting robots if you think about it that go along and dig a hole and then move on to the next one. You know, there's just so many different ways they could do it there, Sean. But you got to remember a lot of the reasons why they're using the sci-fi stuff is you can shortcut stuff, kind of like what I explained with the tractor beams. You know, when you go back to old school fantasy, you can't just gamify things. You've just got to do it how they were done, and they make things more difficult because there's all these things like physics in the way and stuff like that, where you just go, oh yeah, I've got a tractor beam and I can just pick things up. It removes all those gates and just simplifies things. Dawn Steeler says Cygnus did wrap.
Dawn Steeler
said Cygnus did wrap fairly recently, so there's that and some vehicles that can carry it for a few of these. They've kind of said many times they don't want to sell the Cygnus, and when we did initially think about the landminer, we did talk about the Cygnus, but the thing is, at the end of the day, it's only for one person. So we kind of removed it from that stuff when we did that, and yeah, I do think the Cygnus could come back around, and it could be like a solo landminer thing, but then you've got the, like you mentioned in your question, the issue of transportation, because it also doesn't have warp drive or anything like that. It to me feels like more likely if they brought the Cygnus in, it would be something that goes it's like a vehicle, not a ship. So it's the underground land vehicle is the way you need to look at it. And so basically you would have that with an outpost. It sounds ridiculous. The other thing you got to take into account too is if you actually go look at the design for the Cygnus, and this is the reason why I always rule it out, is it has this giant kind of inflating bag that fills with stuff, and it's on this tiny little neck, right? Which basically means it works in zero gravity, but it wouldn't work on a planet with atmosphere because that would just go and fall off or snap, or it just doesn't work in gravity. So
I'm just going to jump in very quickly to say big thanks to MT Stunner, who's watching over on Twitch. Gifted 10 subs. Thank you very much for that, buddy. Very much appreciated.
Oh, wow. Shit. I missed that.
Oh, thank you for 10 subs.
So this is because I got to look to my left, and I don't look to my left.
And today I don't have it up because I'm already lagging. So it's one of the things I shut down to try and help relieve the lag. But the other thing with the Cinder's mining drone is that it's a drone. It's not a manned ship.
Hey, Algared, you got a gifted sub on Inforunners.
I can see that being the drone that we sell.
You got a gifted, you got a gifted sub on your own channel. That's hilarious. Zero Vega got one. Akisha got one.
Lovely, woohoo!
Commodore Comert got one, and Outlaw Knight Zero got one. So thank you for that. Appreciate that very much, Mr. Stunner. MT Stunner.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's really nice. But the Cinder's mining drone is a mining drone. Now, I for years used to think that the Orion came with a skiff or a snub ship. And I stand corrected. From Chris's memory, it doesn't. But it is thought. I think several people have thought that it comes with a drone. And a Cinder's mining drone on the Orion would make sense. It'd be the only way I could see them selling it. Or providing it as players in game.
I would agree with that. It could work. It could work with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because the Orion is such a big ship, and it is supposed to be basically a major mining platform. It makes sense. Does it mean it will be? No. Would it be nice if it was? Yes. But don't hold your breath.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna. This is a 3D print, right?
Next question.
Hang on. No.
Yep.
So this is what I was talking about. So you can see the bag at the back there, right? It just means that just doesn't work in atmosphere because this whole part would just off. You would have to make a land version of it, essentially, and because of its design, where do you put that? Do you just have like a cylinder that?
Yep.
Like it just doesn't work.
But even looking at that Cinder's mining drone has a cab for a person.
Yep.
So
But it's one person.
Obviously, obviously that's So obviously that's showing it's the design or the way it may have changed. Because I was always under the impression it was just a mining drone, not a manned ship.
I
I
always knew it was manned. But like, look at the size of the thrusters too, and what I would call the knees. So that thing does move itself around and stuff in space as well. But you've also got to think something that big on planet, and it's only got thrusters. Like, yeah, possible, I guess. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit pedantic on the whole gravity thing and the neck, but like you could just gamify it and it works, I guess. But I just don't see it.
Well, I suppose when you look at the size of the cab, that neck is pretty huge, but the bag is bigger. So yeah, I can see the concern. Low gravity planets, awesome, but yeah. So seeing the cab, I don't think it'll be. I don't think we'll see that on the Orion. If it was an unmanned version, yes.
All right, sorry. I still think we're getting that Argo UFO as a mole-sized salvage, and that comes from Dawnstiller. Didn't they say that it was scrapped? I'll put it this way. I think we could possibly get another UFO type ship from Argo, but I don't think it would be that one specifically. What was that? That was scrapped. It was the raft, wasn't it? Do you remember the one they showed off, the Argo UFO? I'll have a look and see if I can find it.
No, I don't.
Let me have a look. Argo UFO. Bang! Here we go. I got 2 pictures straight away. Open image in tab. Switching this over, and we got open image.
The Argo Cylon. Okay.
Yep. So these are the 2 images. So apparently this is for the raft though, originally, is what I remember. It's different. Actually, no, wasn't this the SRV? Oh, I honestly can't remember.
Possible.
But yeah, it would have been unique. Yep. It would have been different. There's no reason they can't come back to it for something else, but yeah, that would have been really different. We don't have a disc ship, do we? Yeah, you kind of sit there and ask, why did they give up on it? I don't know. Interesting. Well, I guess
it looks very Cylon-y to me.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever quite get the answer to that one, unfortunately, but that's what it is. All right, Sean Solo asks, more of a whole... No, I already did that one. Shit. Cygnus.
We've done that one.
Atlas platform-based radar truck or command truck. So, yep, that's been brought up a few times by Badges and SA. You guys brought that up in your Badges?
Yeah, we've... some sort of ground-based scanner, some sort of early warning truck would be great. Command vehicle, yeah, not quite sure what you're commanding, but you could... I mean, you could do some fun things with it. You could have very low-resolution camera feeds from each of you guys, I guess, in the same sort of format as Aliens when they go in and they're watching all the feeds and, watch all your guys get chumped by aliens.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that they even said, I think Todd Pappy said that Chris keeps asking him about what about laser designation. So I think, because I talked about that previously, and I know SA's talked about it a few times as well.
SA's been obsessed with it, to say the least. He's brought it up so many times, but I do agree with him. It is a very simple way to get that gameplay moving between people. So it's something that they need to bring in, and for both torpedoes or dumbfires, or even just showing people from the air where they want you to shoot and stuff like that. So, Axis also asks
0096 asks again, submarines.
Eventually, they have said underwater vehicles, but I still think they're a fair way off. Especially when they've said they want 100 land vehicles. Does that mean they want 20 underwater vehicles? Like, yeah. So
I think less would be more with underwater stuff.
I always
kind of.
imagine ships.
Yeah, I think you'll
I've
get
seen Interstellar. I don't think that's
do it anyway.
I think you'll get ships on the surface, and I'll get you some. I think you'll get some kind of hybrid between the two, and you'll probably even get a land vehicle that can go underwater and stuff like that. So I envision at least 10 to 20. You've also got to think about different sizes, like small, medium, large.
Yeah.
So I do think you'll get one that, you know, is a solo, and I think you'll get up to like maybe 10 people or something like that, like as a troop transporter, because I do think eventually there may even be things like bases underwater or caves underwater, underground bunkers underwater, or you know, entering via sewage grate, you know, all that type of thing. So when you run it all through,
underground research lab sounds fun.
Yeah.
Or underwater research lab.
Yeah. So you got to think gameplay and excitement and engaging the player and all those things. When you add all that in, it's not just taking the real world and going, hey, they're going to do exactly what they do now. It's also, is that enjoyable? Because, like, we'll put it this way, I don't think they'll have a profession in game that is a sewage worker, because most people don't want to do that in real life, you know? So just as an example. Anything else you guys want to add to that before we move on? No,
I think that's it.
Ted Wendelbo asks, suggestion, a landmine laying, so a literal landminer. Do you want to speak to that, Badges? Because, like, my thought process would be...
I think he means landmine as in explosive, anti-tank and anti-personnel mine.
Yeah, so like physically on the ground mines, as in in-space floating ones. So as long as they make it so the in-space floating ones just fall when they're in atmosphere, that's a thing.
Yeah.
If they can because we know they move, right? So if they can self-hover, then they would never do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my answer is God. I hope not. Just so there's a couple of types of ship that keeps coming up. There's things like artillery keeps coming up, or vehicles. Artillery keeps coming up. Landmines keep coming up, and then the ship that I keep seeing mentioned is some sort of orbital bombardment.
They've ruled out orbital bombardment. They've said that
exactly.
So many times. This game is World War II in space. There was no kind of. I guess the closest you'll get is a mortar. Yeah. Yeah,
well, I mean, battleships were used routinely to, you know, on D-Day in the Pacific, but they were generally within sight of land. And I think from a gameplay perspective, you know, that whole being shot at by people that are 100k up and just completely immune to anything that you can do.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. No, I think it's the same with landmines. There's nothing, you know. I play a lot of, and you guys have heard me talk about this before. I play a lot of Hell Let Loose, and mines in Hell Let Loose used to be one-hit kills.
Yeah,
and there is nothing worse than hitting one of these things. You explode. And all right, well done to that person for kind of anticipating where the mine was going to be. You know, where the vehicles were likely to move, but it's like, well, no one needed to be there. What's to stop you laying these things indiscriminately? Yeah, it's no fun. You know?
Yeah, so that's a realism versus fun. That's it in a nutshell. I was also gonna say, you made me lose my train of thought. Shit, it was along mines. I've lost it. It'll come back in 5 minutes, don't worry. Anyway, you were going to say, Algared?
No, I don't think I was. If I was, I've forgotten because I'm old. Yeah, that's my having an old man Hurston moment.
It's all good.
I think next question.
Yeah, we'll do.
So Sean Solo says another idea. Deforestation, logging vehicles. I think wood is still a useful material for things.
Yep.
It's another material gathering profession in and of itself potentially. Yes, it is. Especially when you consider that when they made the Phoenix and they put the wooden floors in, they said, you know, because wood is expensive, we can't, you know, you've actually got to get, it takes time to process and do it and haul it into space. So,
it's technically like an offshoot of farming if you think about it. So it's like collecting of trees is very similar to collecting of plants. I assume that they may have a vehicle that does both, you know, and I also think down the line we won't just have the same trees we have on Earth everywhere. There will be alien ones and stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Steps TV says, question, a proper camper from Consolidate Outlands. That's kind of along the idea of what you were saying as an RV. So someone else had the same idea.
Yep.
Cyan Connie Wen. Oof. Cyan Connie. Maybe that's the rework. Does Cyan get a hold of it and like, we can fix this shit?
Yep.
I don't know. Algared, I'll let you speak to that.
You know, like, isn't that what the Raelian is really? The Raelian's a Xeon ship. It's a cargo hauler.
I guess it is. It is
So,
partially very similar. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
So
what about
I'd
you,
say
Badges?
we've already got it, really.
Yeah, I don't really know enough about kind of Zion chip design to. The market, it feels like that market is pretty saturated. Stuff that can do cargo that can also do vehicles. I suppose that what we are lacking is other ships that can do snubcraft. As part of the ship's actual exterior. There's plenty of them that can land them in, I suppose. Maybe they got to that and then just went, but you know, they've got this whole docking thing. It would be a shame to have to develop that for literally just the Connie.
Yeah, can you imagine if there was a ship that held like 20 Merlins and it's just like a flying ring and there's just like 20 Merlins docked on the inside or the outside and it's just got like a central core and everyone just runs out to the outer ring and just deploys. And then there's like one guy left behind or they all just abandon it and just like it just warps them to the area and that, you know, and it's just called the Kruger Hive or something, I don't know. And it just they all dump the ring.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of the lag's killing me. I'm getting frustrated. I'm sure you guys are as well.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
But
keep going.
I'm assuming that you or when you said that, I automatically thought of Babylon 5. And the Babylon 5 raiders, they were basically circular, central hub. All the raiders were around the edge and launched.
And
so I'd love to see something like that.
A little bit crossed with the one from Star Wars that Obi-Wan has. You know how he has the ring that connects and then he can warp. A little bit like that too. So yeah, a little bit of everything. Next question. Mobile landing pad to transport ships on the ground. Mobile land pad to transport ships on the ground. Yeah, that's a little like the concept we had for the medium carrier, wasn't it? That you were talking about, Badges.
Yeah.
So, allowing it to land on the ground, and it's like it has two medium pads. It's kind of like just folds them out, but it allows you, because you can land one in space. So, say you have two medium ships that can land on it, and they could transfer the cargo between. Would be really useful because it means you don't have to go to a space station to do it. You don't have to. You can do it in the middle of nowhere. And at the moment, the only thing really akin to that is the Kraken or Liberator, but the Liberator can only do it with small ships, right? So you would have two ships that land on the Kraken, all the cargo is loaded into the Kraken and then loaded back onto the other vehicle. In this way, you could also there was nothing so you can transport a vehicle between two vehicles unless it's on the ground. So you could land in space and have a vehicle. So you know, MSR and a Connie, and you want to transfer the Ursa between the two.
Yeah.
Which gives you a different place to do it.
We've also got the ISC. Episode where they showed the landing bays for outposts.
Yep.
So where you actually be able to land and that gave the idea that you'd be able to land and store the vehicle, which means if you want to bring out a vehicle and put it on a ship, you'd land your vehicle, or even transfer cargo. You'd land it, take the cargo off, spawn another ship.
Let me check this out to you guys then.
Put the vehicle on. So
real quick, just based on what you said there, I actually think eventually the pads are going to disappear. I think you'll get garages for vehicles, because we saw those in Levski and we have them on Microtech and stuff like that. And I think you'll eventually get in-ground hangars rather than pads because of the spawning of ships. So when you want to spawn a ship on a pad, you know, it kind of just appears and flies down. They need to hide that spawning mechanic, and the only way they can do that is hangars. So they, you know, it spawns in the hangars and you don't see it, or they deliver it, you know. So I do think eventually they may, not saying they're going to do it, but they may make it so that because if you know how there's all the garage doors and stuff, it may actually bring your ship out a door and tractor beam it onto the pad eventually. I don't know if they're going to do that, but that is something they could do if they wanted to for that realism factor. So you could actually just go into a hangar and there's a list of ships and you go, oh, I want my Aurora, and it opens a gap, you know, like it opens a door and the Aurora comes out like it's just been pulled out of some massive selection factory thing out the back or whatever and delivered to you. And knowing Chris Roberts, that's probably how it's going to be. But we'll have to wait and see. You're not doing this, Algared, so I
was sorry. There you go. Just for you.
Sorry.
All right. So one of the things I was thinking of then is I was going to hang the other day, and I was looking up, and I could see one, you know, big doors up in the really up high, and it was 1, 2, 3, and it was like these were ship storage areas, and when you summon a ship, that's where the ship comes from. So it kind of gives a lore reason for why my Aurora can be spawned in that place and why your Hornet can be spawned in that place. It's because they're pulling them out from those storage rooms. I was thinking of something else, but when I thought of that and thought of the rooms, I lost. That's what I was going to say. I was thinking of in terms of when I've been to base stations recently, whether I'm in a Hornet, whether I'm in an Aurora, whether I'm in whatever I'm in, you know, a Pisces. When I request landing, I haven't had a pad for ages when I'm landing. It's been a hangar. And I was trying to think, are there any stations besides Olisar that are still spawning ships on hangars or spawning ships on a pad? And if there are, they're very few and far between, aren't they?
No, there isn't one. And I think that kind of signifies I do think pads will be a thing of the past. Just wanted to say real quick, thanks for the Twitch Prime subscription, Revan, on Twitch, because he subscribed. Thank you. Great show. Happy to support. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Revan.
Thank you.
Next question. Armand Butler will.
And since you've done that, I will remind. Since Revan's just done that, I will. Since Revan just did that, I will say before you do the question, if you want a question answered straight away, don't forget you can do a on YouTube. You can do the super chat, and that will get that question answered almost immediately. You don't have to. We will go through every question, but if you want them answered now, that's why you can do it. Sorry, X.
That's all right. Armand Butler, question: Will the make a terraforming vehicle? Broken English, but it's okay. He's obviously not his first language. My thoughts are: I want to buy a plot and build an underground racetrack and smuggling holds. Underground racetrack's a cool idea. I don't think they're going to be the terraforming. Like, so people are looking at games like Dual Universe and stuff and thinking like you can morph the terrain and all that. That I don't think that's going to be a thing. Can you build a racetrack on the surface? Absolutely. I think roads will be a thing. Actually, there's a good one. A vehicle that makes roads. That could be a thing. Considering the river tool and the road tool, that could be a thing. I never thought of that until just then. Allowing players to make roads. What do you guys think about that? What are the gaming ramifications there? Like,
please don't give players the ability to make roads, they'll break it.
Well, from orbit, you can just see all the pictures they'll make.
Yes.
They'll be rather phallic.
Yeah. The amount of penis-shaped roads will be disgusting, frankly.
Yeah.
Yep. As X said, phallic.
Yeah.
I could see them being road repair vehicles. So, CIG have put the roads in, and because of damage and wear and tear and weather, you've got to clear the road of the sand, or clear the road of rock falls, or repair the road. I could see that being a thing.
Yeah. But for game breaking, I
pretty-
don't think you can have terraforming, because someone did bring that up earlier and we kind of addressed it then. But yeah, terraforming is not in their plans. You can kind of tell that because of the outposts and stuff like that. They're all up on stilts to address the rockiness of terrain and stuff like that. They wouldn't preemptively be building buildings like that if they were going to allow you to flatten the terrain yourself. And I actually think the outposts that we have now in game are very akin to what players are going to be building, where stuff more like you know, the outposts we're seeing in Pyro and stuff, they're bespoke. So yeah. And my camera's gone green screen again. All right. Quotus.
Today's stream is we're full of all the things that our viewers love.
Quotal
lag,
Quotarupt 19
freezing.
Quotarupt 1998 asks, should the Perseus and the Polaris have a med bay? I don't think you've talked about it in your dedicated videos. So the Polaris, I believe the Polaris has one. Am I mistaken there?
I believe
I'm under the impression that it does.
Yeah, I can't quite remember. Like, because again, when we get these
I'm under the impression
questions,
it does as well.
sometimes it's been years since we've looked at the brochures and stuff, so things get rusty. But yeah, the Perseus doesn't have one. Should the Polaris have it? Yeah, I think for its size, it kind of does.
No, the Perseus doesn't because it's too small. It's basically a...
Yeah. Well, I'll put this to you, Badgers, but to me, the Perseus, the reason why is it such a small cruise size is so it is somewhat reliant on a fleet or other ships. Yeah, that seems to be it's a gameplay mechanical thing. So it clearly, from its design, needs to be around other ships to keep the fighters and stuff off it. Or am I mistaken?
Yeah, so it's certainly from a gameplay perspective, not having the Perseus is designed to operate with a fleet. Certainly in combat. Yes, it can do other things. Of course, it can. But primarily, from what they're talking about, it's designed to operate with a fleet. I think at the moment, a med bay, not having a med bay seems like a bad idea because of the way that they're handling medical. Bearing in mind that we are still at tier 0 medical stuff.
Right.
So, or tier 0.5, right? We got the addition of tier injuries and certain medicines. What I'm hoping that we'll see is with the lowest tier of injuries, there will be fixes that you can apply without having to go to a med bed. So, for example, a broken limb can be splinted like you can do in DayZ, maybe. A head injury, you can have someone swaddle you up in bandages and you go around with a bandaged head. And they limit what you can do. So, for example, a splinted leg will stop you sprinting.
Gotta stop you just there. But how do you bandage your helmet?
No, bandage inside and then put the helmet back on.
Well, you know what I mean? But, like, if you go down on a moon...
Yes, for any of these things, you'd need to come away from... You'd need to go into an atmosphere to be dealt with, right? But the point I'm making is this is something that you could do on a ship without a medbed.
So okay, so on it, so like a basic med kit level. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. So yeah, if you're on a ship, you can strip the person down. You can, and then basically you can put a thing on their leg or a thing on their arm to hold it in place because it's broken or whatever.
Exactly that.
A neck brace for their head. I get that one, right?
Yeah.
So that's broken bones, and then. Yeah. Okay. All right. I get where you're going, right? Yeah. And I'll agree with you. But you have to get them back to a ship.
Yes. So you need them in a ship, in an atmosphere. You can take the spacesuit off. You can deal with them, but that way, then when we're off miles from a station, just randomly picking up a tier 3 doesn't ruin your entire play session, because as we've all found, a tier 3 head injury. You struggle to hear anything, your screen's blurry, and it's like, forget fun gameplay. You're going to give me a migraine if I do this for an hour.
You've got to take the orange one. You know the different drugs? You've got to take the orange one. Yeah. That fixes a lot of that stuff.
Exactly that, but you still, it says that you've dealt with it, but you've not really dealt with it. So, an injury on the chest can be reduced stamina. tier 2 is where you're really starting to be limited. If they were to implement something like that, I think the Perseus without a medbed would be fine. To draw comparisons with the real world military, if you look at frigates and destroyers, they have a medic on board. They don't have a GP. You need a dedicated medical staff to perform surgery and things like this. So when people say, well, it's a military ship, of course it's got a medical bed. No, actually, that's not how it works. And if you've got someone with, you know, say, I don't know, appendicitis or something where you want to operate them, our first option is to get them off and land them ashore at a dedicated medical facility. The only ships that carry that sort of staff, you're talking big landing ships, carriers, capital, in forces terms, capital ships, the big important ones.
Yep.
You know,
and that becomes important because of Polaris, which is the smallest capital ship. According to the Q&A part 2 for the Polaris, says, very last question, will the Polaris have any other rooms not shown on the layout? And the answer is, rooms not listed in the brochure include an armory, med bay, brig, captain's quarters, and secondary quarters for fighter pilot and second in command. So there you go. The Polaris has a med bed.
Didn't know it had a pilot room either. Interesting. Or I'd forgotten. Just want to call it real quick.
That was one I just saw on as well.
Dutch Mutt. Oh, that's a tongue twister to say. Dutch Mutt. Thank you for the membership on YouTube.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, dude.
So, next question.
You should have added a question with that, and we'd have answered it.
For sure. Your thoughts on nautical fleets? Actually, I'll put that back to you, Badgers, since you're the Navy man. So, on the ocean, what would you like to see?
I think, again, kind of less is more initially. I think, you know, having something... There's loads of options. You can have anything up to a rolled-up rubber dinghy with a compressed air can that inflates really quick, all the way through to, you know, on ocean planets, what would we see? Obviously, some sort of transport that you can take kit around so you can go and do whatever tasks you've been assigned.
So initially I had you like in an 890 jump type thing in like a jacuzzi on the deck, and then the way you kind of downgraded it literally became a dinghy with like an old school bathtub in it, and you're just sitting there with rubber ducky. As you were talking, but
that was a Drake version.
Yeah.
And look, I've got to say, Dawnstein has fucking basically said, but has got my thought bang on in the comments. Feature creep.
It is a little bit,
but miles down the line.
Yeah, well, it's vehicles, but like, how many of them do you realistically need? And as I said, it comes down to gameplay. And at the end of the day, I think there's more gameplay going under and into caves and stuff, rather than and fighting or doing missions and stuff. Like for example, exploration of a planet. I can see like look at the submarines we have now. They're almost all of them are exploratory or combat. That's it. Right, so maybe a civilization that somehow has shown that they were under the water, or they, got submerged under the water.
I mean, how cool a landing zone would it be where you land on some sort of rig that sticks above the water, but that's the spaceport. Everything else is under the water. All your shuttles are submersibles. You've got all that sort of. That would be great. Yeah, I think that's awesome. No reason you can't have that on an ocean planet. But I think for us, later.
Really quick, Algared, isn't there a planet that's all ocean?
Yep, there are a couple, I believe. There's Nemo.
There you go.
And I think there's another one as well. So, but I'd have
to.
But there are a couple of all water planets, I do believe. So yeah. And that bad idea of that base with the landing pad up above and then going down below, that also is the type of base I think we see on that lava planet, which you like. Execute.
Yes. Sorry, I'm replying to someone that is messaging me that needs to be replied to because they're a moderator and they needed a response about something going on. Next question. And I've lost my spot. Right, hang on. Where was I up to?
It was quadruple about med beds. And then we went almond butter about nautical fleets, and
Yep.
went to Rayo.
So Rayo says, artillery vehicle and Atlas platforms.
Yeah, I found it. Yep, artillery vehicle on Atlas platform. Yeah, I'll let you take that one too, Badges. Sorry.
Possibly. Not massively fun. To get shelled from 3 miles out and have no idea that A, it's coming, but B, where they are, or C, how to respond to it.
Laser targeting.
Yeah, I think, so one of the things we've talked about is a launcher that can't fire unless you have people with eyes on and designating targets. Because then you've got that element of risk. You identify the spotters.
Yeah, someone's at risk, but they have an advantage because they've also got to stand there like this. So if you see them or see the laser or something, you could stop them.
Yeah. And you also see which direction the missile's coming from because you've got the contrail sitting behind it.
Yep.
So you know how to, which way you need to start responding.
That's it. And you can potentially still shoot it out of the air as well.
Automated missile defenses would work for defending against that, so an attacker would want to take out those missile defense platforms before. So,
all right, we've still probably got 25 questions to go. We've got 15 minutes, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes to get your questions in because this is already going to go past our usual runtime, but that's fine.
On that note, with me not feeling too well, I'm going to go to bed and hopefully not break myself further. But thank you very much for having me, guys.
Yeah. We'll catch you soon.
Yeah.
Wait,
cheers, guys.
Someone just dropped a question directly for you, though. Badger, if there is no orbital bombardment, then why do we have torpedoes with theoretical ranges of 20k? Some of the Atmos aren't that thick. Well, I would say that there's space, and there's a lot of space, and you can fire it that far. But anyway, what would you say, Badgers?
Yeah, exactly that. So, the whole orbital bombardment thing, that's not us. That's CIG saying that they don't intend to have any sort of orbital bombardment mechanic. Torpedoes, sure, dumbfired torpedoes can do some damage and do that sort of stuff. We'll see. Planetary Atmos tend to be about 100k. So you need to be in Atmo for that. But yeah, you could. Go on.
I'm just reading what Badger Dawnstiller said. There's a reason they call it space.
Yeah. No, it is a good question. There is that possibility to hit stuff from much further out. But the idea of stuff that sits in orbit and basically sets fire to the atmosphere, like 40k exterminator style, or anything like that, is I don't think they're planning on anything quite that dramatic. The Idris railgun, of course, is something else that does ridiculous amounts of damage. But yes, and thank you very much to everyone who's wishing me better. I shall go and cough my lungs up somewhere else. Have a good rest of the show, guys. Take it easy.
All right, take care, Badgers.
See you, mate.
And linked to that is the SRV. Like CIG may not plan and envisage and have a mechanic for orbital bombardment, but full well, just from seeing what people used to do at Hurston, an SRV dragging an asteroid, drops the asteroid into atmosphere, and you've suddenly got orbital bombardment.
Well, you've got to be able to aim it, don't you?
May not be very accurate, but you could be raining.
I remember what I was going to say now, back when we were talking about bombardment, is the Bengal, for example, it should still be able to physically shoot and possibly hit you, but it shouldn't be able to aim from that far high up. You know what I mean? So if it gets lucky, like if you're in something big that it can physically see, then it should be able to shoot you, right? But again, they'll be able to see you in space as well. So
and I think the other side of that is that whole, the way they can counter that is just the atmospheric interference that's blocking the, you see that dozens of times on movies, we've got, the nebula's interfering with our scanners. We can't see them and they can't see us. Good, hide. So I could see that being a fact of it that they use to explain why it can't go on. But yeah.
So Monster AV asks, with Aurelian breaking into the Zion larger ship market, I would say it's large. Okay. Do you think we'll be able to get the an alien large military ship, Alien Perseus? Yeah, eventually. But
Eventually.
I think we've always said that it's more likely most of the alien ships are going to come with their expansion pack. So you'll get a few, the basic ones that travel into our space that you're going to see more commonly. But until you can play as a Zion, you wouldn't see, you'll see all their buildings, their cities and stuff like that filled out. But actually being able to play as one means you're more than likely going to use their ship. So that's where you'll see that real burst of all their stuff come out. I think that'll be a lot further down the line. I think more realistic, we're probably the closest alien ships we're going to see more of Algared would be Tavaran.
I would expect to see more Tavaran. We've got Tavaran living in the UEE. We've got Tavaran living in the Browner system as kind of independents. We've got in lore, we've got Tavaran caches being found. I would like to see Tavaran equivalent of the Gemini weapon. So the Gemini gun factory is actually Tavaran manufactured. It was originally designed by Tavaran.
There you go. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And they have some good guns. I do enjoy some of their guns.
So the Gemini was actually Human Girl and a Tavaran friend, and they actually were building guns, and she was a salesperson. And people would say, "Oh, who built it?" And she'd say, "Oh, my twin, my brother." And so Gemini became but they wouldn't say it was a Tavaran who built it because of that anti-Tavaran aspect. But the weapons are basically were designed by Tavaran. So those who like alien weapons, then you need to get your Gemini weapons because they are Tavaran originally. So there you go. The things you learn.
Someone's just calling out our Fix My Fleet channel on Discord. Yeah, if you do need help with stuff, reach out on Discord.
Yep.
And if you really do need help directly, you can contact me or Algared. But there are a lot of people on there that'll help you as well. I can't speak for Algared, but I'm assuming he's the same. We've pride ourselves on being rather approachable. So yeah.
I'd like to think we are.
Yeah. Eric F. I can't even pronounce that. Eric Ecolothy, with CIG going through the concept for the Crucible again, do you think they will make us any significant changes or just... Yeah, I think it's going to get significant changes, don't you, mate?
In some ways, I hope not, because it was such a unique ship with, the way the engines work to slide up and down to get that balance of gravity. The fact that you could get into the engines from inside the ship to do repair, the fact that you had the cab that could remove, all of those things. The fact that you had the rotating bridge so you could spin around and all really nice things and for that ship, but made it unique. But
I don't think it'll just be size. I think it'll be a little bit of realignment and stuff like that. Yeah.
I've seen people talk about, do we think the Liberator will be the basis for that? And I think that there is an element where you go, I can see that, but I really hope that it stays much more to what it is originally. But
so for me, the biggest question is always that Scarab, right? So that Scarab, even initially, you were meant to be able to close it over the top of the Hornet, and the problem with that now in the metrics, right, is you have to look at the Odyssey and you have to look at what they're doing in the Polaris, and they've now said there's this metric. That means if that lid closes over, technically that needs to be a metric hangar size, right?
Yep.
Because you need to be able to put every small ship into that, right?
Yep.
Or does that mean that's like some kind of weird bastardized halfway thing and only, does it just stay open and carry the bigger ships? So only certain ships that can close over. Knowing metrics is a thing from my work in the industry, I have to assume that it's metric because it's just so much safer and it's so much easier and
as I'd said, the second you keep it metric so it works with everything, it makes life easier for you. So I think the redesign has to work in that way. I do still hope that the Scarab can close up because one of the advantages of that is meant small ships could go in there, could close up the Scarab, and even if you're in space, you could work on the ship without being in an atmospheric suit. So it meant you could get into the tighter areas more easily.
So
Whereas
if you've got
got to
that,
be open.
yeah. So long story short, there's two ways they can do it, and I think if they want to keep the ship looking the same, it has to be some kind of thing where it doesn't close anymore. If it closes, it has to be taller. Like, look how big the hangar is on that Odyssey, and you look in the photos, the Scarab's kind of like a pizza box, essentially. Like it's like a pizza box, but really you need it to be more like a box. Like it needs to be like 4 times taller or something, and that will drastically change. It'll almost make the Crucible look like it's carrying a giant box, won't it?
Yeah.
And when you do that, you've got to realize that the control tower disc UFO thing on top has to go a bit higher. So it also it changes the ship significantly. You get where I'm going here, right? So that leading it all back, that's where I want to know what they're going to do. So they've either got to change the Scarab, which changes the ship, or they leave the ship the same and change the Scarab.
Yep. Or they change the scale of a ship. So if they change they keep the Scarab the same, or they keep the design of the Scarab the same, size it up, but then size the ship, and it falls into the Idris issue. When the Idris was being built, they went, "Oh, we've used the wrong ship size for the Hornet that it's supposed to be able to carry." So to make the bigger, they had to enlarge the whole ship, because the second you start stretching one area, it changed the visual look, and they wanted to keep the visual look the same, so you had to expand the whole ship all over the place, and that meant more decks and other issues coming in as well. So it was never just a simple, oh yeah, we'll just double the size of the ship. You think double the size of the ship, you're doubling the size of your cockpit.
So
that changes your bridge.
Algared, in the last 10 minutes, we've answered 2 questions. We've got like 30 to go. So we need to pick this speed up. First one, Rough Riders asked in chat about an org. Yes, we have been looking into an org, but I think we're going to kick it right down the road towards release, because every org we've ever seen that starts up just dies. Because the only ones that have lasted are dormant. All right. COG going through the concept of the Crucible. Monster Avery asks, do you think they also talk about reconcepting, reworking Orion opinions on what would change? So they did do a concept a couple of years ago. It got really big. I think the look of the outside is established. Do I think they'll change things? I think mainly at this stage it would be internal. What about you? Yes or no?
I think internal. From they grew the size of it, they doubled it in size. I don't think when they doubled it that the exterior look was any different.
It was identical. Both of them were textured, so that kind of told me everything I need to know. All right, Sean the Shallow asks, large mining ship that is basically a drone mothership, manned or remote drones for breaking, then mothership collects, refines, and stores drones are small and maneuverable. Down the road,
potentially, it could be the middle step between.
Actually, do you know what I just realized? That would actually kind of be a similar thing to what Badges was talking about, but drones used as multiple different professions. Drones for repair, drones for salvage, drones for mining. Could be a thing. So a larger jack of all trades drone ship.
But he was talking about that for being a starter ship. Which
and that's what I said. But yeah. All right, Cascadian asks, could I see a bus, like something akin to a ground-based Starliner, say a consolidated outline hover bus? I think that could totally be a thing, especially in more remote or poor areas. So Dad, we're going to catch the bus to Hurston, so I can get my free health check from Uncle Algared or whatever. Yeah, I could see that. Could you? Eventually? Well, they're building roads. What's going to be on them? There's going to be something on them.
Yep. If they build roads, there'll be the industry vehicles, or transport vehicles, everything else. So, yeah. Jonathan Briand says, suggestion, home ship example, Drake-like Terran building in StarCraft, or Origin like the skyscraper. Many of them in one location would look cool, some with different modules.
Home ship example. Home ship. So he's talking like a starter ship that's like the camper van again. So it's akin to the Mustang Beta.
And then an Origin ship that looks like a skyscraper.
Do we think I don't know. I'll put this to you. Do you think they'll use ship manufacturers for building manufacturers, or are they more likely to make their own building manufacturers? I'm going with
the fact that
their own.
I'm going to say their own. The fact that we've got our hangars are Revel and York.
Not to mention the buildings we have different companies for plants, like what is it, Ricardo and Schubin and a whole bunch of. So yeah, they'll make. Didn't they say they're spinning up another branding manufacturing place in Montreal? A new branding thing. So that's a thing. Yeah.
But those mining platforms, like the Schubin mining platform, the Rayari platform, they're using the same modules that we in Crusader we're seeing everywhere. So that's just the prefab buildings being built. That's just a company that's running the station. So I don't think that's necessarily that type of thing. But I think those companies would just use the prefab buildings or the prefab camper vans or whatever. So, but when you look at the hangars, we do have 4 categories of hangars. We've got the industrial, the Selfland, I can't remember the middle one, and
AeroView.
So AeroView, thank you. So you've got those. They're 4 companies. They do hangars. They do them in a different style and different look. So yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, we're going into rapid fire mode here. We need more 1 to 2 man ships in the $100 to $200 price range. I think a long range version of the Consolidated Outland Nomad, but it has 2 crew remote turrets and fits a vehicle bikes. Isn't that the Freelancer and the Cutlass? But we did do a vote, and I have talked about this previously in this stream. We did a vote a couple of streams ago, and rather than the starter ships, people did want ships in that price range, and the one that we voted manufacturer-wise was the Crusader, and that was a poll. We did 2 polls to see what people wanted. So yeah, we don't necessarily disagree with what you've just said there.
Yeah.
Riddick asks, Aurora XL, that's a 2-seater variant. Ooh.
Had we not got the Pisces, I'd say yes.
I would also say the Reliant is its unique thing about that Reliant. The other one I'll chuck back out is the Cartel Owl 2-seater variant. Because of ships that you say broken promises, and there are a few out there, that is one of the ones. Like, it was originally a 2-seater. That is one of the big ones. Yep. Yeah.
The Cartel Owl Scout was supposed to be a 2-seater. Yep.
I won't say Aurora XL, but I would say definitely some more 2-seaters. I think you and I would agree on that, yeah?
It'd be nice if the XL did have passenger seats, or a more specced out loungy type area in that entry area, a seat or something which
Aurora Beta. Aurora Beta, so it loses the bed, gets a mini kitchen and a seat.
But yeah, it just doesn't fit. I don't feel it fits the Aurora range, but we do need more of those 2-man ships.
All right, Big Gorgon. The Caterpillar is said to have a number of modules for various functions beyond cargo. Is exploration likely? No. It was really going to broad strokes here. They talked about having more troops on board. They talked about medical. There was a chop shop. There was one that launched, like a search and rescue one that launched people across to other ships, which is not for rescue. It's more like recovery. Any others you remember? There was an armory. There was an
armory.
A connected dock one, which I think docking's kind of gone out now, so that one's gone. There's a video on it. We've done a video on it. Ship Scrutiny Caterpillar. Yep. Go have a look at it if you want more on it. We've done one on it. So Ship Scrutiny Caterpillar.
And when we did that Ship Scrutiny on the Caterpillar, we did go back and look at all the videos that CIG had released on the Caterpillar and pulled all the ideas together. And I think we even watched
3 of them.
And I think we watched one of the videos or chunks of the videos as we were doing that. So
we did.
So worth looking at.
Riddick asks, more domestic ships and atmosphere-only ships and vehicles. Ooh. Yeah, I think that is a thing.
Well, that's basically non-pew-pew ships. So it's non-cargo ships. So yes.
I think realistically, more of the vehicles are going to be like today. Like the fire truck, the utility truck. They're like fundamentally, if you look at how, even if you go back through history, I know we didn't have vehicles all through history, but like a cart that collected wood is similar to a truck that collects wood, if you know what I mean. You get what I'm trying to go with that. So there is still somewhat similarities. A spade is a spade is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Claudio.
Yep. Ken Claudio asks, I joined as of July Freefly. Will there be a new discounted starter package in October since it is a big month? Yeah, they do that, don't they?
I do tend to do that.
CJ, or just wait 10 years insurance starter package AIE. They do tend to have a lot of starter packages around AIE, and they what was the other thing? Yeah, they do sometimes do discounted ships. I remember you used to be able to get an Aurora in a package for $25 one Christmas. Do you remember that? Don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I think I've got one.
But yeah, I remember.
I think I've got a couple of those in melt somewhere.
They sold out in seconds because they were just so cheap. And people would just go, "I'll buy, 10 of them," and well, 10 was $250. That's cheap by today's standards. Let's just put it that way. So.
So yes, they do them, and also welcome to the verse.
Yes.
Glad to have you along. But yeah, they do sell cheap packs at those events. You've just got to watch. We can't say yes, they will, because they may not, but it's quite often.
We're getting more cool. I'm trying to fire them off quick, and the questions are still waiting up. Meet your maker.
All right.
Vec, limited air and height, air shield, ground vehicle, which will take 2 to 3. Yeah, we've talked about shields before. They are 100% coming. They're the only thing that makes sense to do with the A2 doing the way it is. Algared?
Yep. Time to kill the bot. So no more questions.
Yep. I won't kill it, but we're just not answering them. They'll go into a list and we'll either do them at the start of the next show or whatever. But yeah, we won't be answering any more on air. Sky cars or ground cars or maybe Gravlev cars from Unknown Guardian. Isn't a sky car just a ship?
Yeah. Or a hover quad or a...
Yeah.
Well, a hover quad can't really do what the Dragonfly can do, but yeah.
Maybe around ArcCorp. That's about it. Monster AVRs and anticipated modules being more shared roles tuned for specific ships, or certain roles being more exclusive to modules for a single ship, like dropship being only a Talon module, not a cat. So my kind of take in it is they allow you to do like they. In regards to Retaliator, that Retaliator is so niche and so bombing that you kind of can't use it all the time. So by giving it cargo modules, it makes it so if you look at it, like a lot of the big attacks, like if you look at way WoW worked and raids and other MMOs, all the big stuff happened on the weekend, right? And so you'd have all your attacks going down with like the torpedo bombing, in that case of the Retaliator, would be on the weekend. And then during the week, you put in the cargo module and you just do your cargo and trade, because you can't bomb every day of the week. So that gives it the flexibility. And that's also the difference between that and the Eclipse, because Eclipse is solo. You just swap between solo vehicles, right? But in the case of Retaliator, if it's like it was originally a 6-man craft, which it's probably going to change in the rework they're kind of doing at the moment, but you get what I'm trying to say. It needed to be able to do 2 things, otherwise it just becomes 5 people that can only use it 2 days a week, and it was just a bit weird. And it's the same thing with all the other ships that have that.
Yep. And so the ships that were very bespoke in terms of their role tended to get that type of 2-role purpose early on.
Yep.
Next question.
Do owners of Idris will see it in hangar at release of Squadron 42? What do you think about release of Kraken, when we can expect it? Thanks, lads. Great work. Yeah, Idris will be shortly after Squadron 42 for sure. I think we'll both agree on that. Kraken
when it's ready.
I think the Kraken is kicked down the road quite a bit. Like, and I know Board Gamer, and I kind of laughed at him when I saw it on stream, because I was like, yeah, you haven't thought that through. He reckons it's coming for Pyro. Is it a possibility? Yes, but I would say it's only the skin, as in the outside. But you've also got to remember, like, if you go look at the model, and there are models around, like on the in the holo viewer and a couple of different fleet viewers and stuff like that, that ship is kit bashed as crazy. It is not like they're not integrated. So when things are integrated, you can tell that they're joined together. This thing is just objects inside each other. They've literally taken the Caterpillar, made a few extra little pieces, and just pushed it all together. That thing was made in a very small period of time. Like I could bash that up in a week in a 3D modeling program, like, for a sale. It's like, oh, we need it for a sale, so let's just make it. And that's why you saw it in the game and all that, because it was all done really quickly. It's not as far as long as you think, because of, and then they've never touched it again, so.
If we're getting any carrier for Pyro, I would expect it to be the Liberator as a transport vehicle.
Ted's found Old Man Hurston's ship. His question is, Ted Windle asks, the Banu brothel, strip club or bedroom in the back, food, booze, weapons, armor in the front, everything soldier on a campaign is. Actually, I could actually see that from the Banu. I actually can see that, but you tell me your thoughts.
I can see that. No, I can see that.
Question. Oh, your name. Military Police Canadian. Okay, cool. Thank you. Makes sense now, MP. Thank you for the clarification on your name. Dawn Stiller, what about the Origin hang glider? Yeah, we've talked about this a few times too, haven't we?
That's great on a planet with Atmo.
Yeah, and it would be really cool to see that kind of like, you can keep it where the X1 is kept in the 400, for example. You know, so you can pop it out and fly down somewhere or whatever. So yeah, I think that will be a thing, because it's once they put it in that concept, everyone's like, oh, that's got to be there eventually. So yeah, it'll probably be a thing eventually because people like it, you know, that type of thing.
Yep. Carusus Soleus says, or asks a question, other than the above capital I ship idea, maybe a Crusader capital class prison ship. Folks could live out their prison simulator dreams.
No, I think it has to be Argo. We established the orange jumpsuit. It has to be Argo. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm not going to expect anything else. No, it can be anything. I'm just being silly. It'll be up to them at the end of the day. I don't even know if we will get a prison ship. Do we really
the only prison
need
ship
one?
I know we've had, the only prison ship I know they've had is the Caterpillar one for the missions, and I'm not even sure that mission's still active at the moment.
I would say we're more likely to, like, it's obviously a version of a bounty hunting ship, and it would be. I could see it for missions, but it's very bespoke if you think about it. I would be more likely, and I'll just chuck this out there. I would be more likely to see it as a ship that has modules, so I could actually see it as a module for, say, something like a Caterpillar. So you have these prison modules, because that way it's not limited, right? So if you made an Argo one as an example, just to go the other way, so you can see the other side of the coin, what else would you add to an Argo car? You know, because it's essentially a cargo ship, because it's carrying transport. Actually, rolling it back, it's got to be the Genesis Starliner. It's the only thing that makes sense. You do the math. It's all about personal transport. They had a military version of it. It would have to be a military, you know, it'd have to be a prison transport Starliner.
A police version. An advocacy Starliner. So, you know, prison cells, classes are blocked off by grates. The guards are in first class. The prisoners are in economy.
It's logic.
They're all chained up.
They're all human, but it's all human transport, that ship. So it's the thing that makes the most sense, because it's just another role that it gets. Yeah, I can't.
Chained up, or they're in isolation, or
Yeah, I just can't unsee it now. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think it can go any other way now. Sorry to burst your bubble, but you brought it on yourself. Yeah. Anyway.
No, he got a Crusader ship. He did get his Crusader prison ship.
Well, he did. He did get a Crusader in the end. So yeah.
Okay. Fishy2951 has a question. Maybe a combination of towing and salvage ship.
Yeah, that was the utility truck I kind of talked about. But as a ship, well, that's just crossing the SRV with a salvage. We've already got them, so why make it combined?
That's what the Crucible was originally had. It was
actually the Crucible still does. Crucible still does have the tractor beam.
Yeah, but
it's
the
kind
towing
of
version.
You kind of drop the Scarab, and it can actually still tow and warp. So whether it keeps that is another kettle of fish.
But the original variant of the Crucible that they talked about of having the towing version had more tractor beams. So
yeah, you gave up the arms, I think it was, to get tractor beams, so it could actually.
It gave up something. I can't remember what it gave up, but it certainly gave up something to give it tractor beams. Is what it would have done. Cascadian has a question. So we have a Starliner as a stand-in for the jetliner, but how about something akin to an ocean liner, say a capital class Argo, people cargo transport ship?
Yeah,
double duty prison ship.
So there was talk of, well, we kind of just covered that, but there was talk of things like the 890 jump being able to land and work like a boat on water. I could almost see that happening with the Genesis Starliner as well. I almost could see a version of the Genesis Starliner Algared akin to the ship in Fifth Element, where some of the floor, so you give up some of the sitting in seats thing, but it's like an entertainment area. So you know how they had the opera there, for example. So it's like it's like a cinema ship or a stage where you can do a performance. I know they kind of have that in the 890 jump, but honestly, it's a fucking joke, right? It is not. It's not well done. And I actually think that they could. Well, maybe it's more of a land-based thing. Maybe that's something that they build in landing zones specifically. I don't know. You get where I'm going, though. A modified version.
Yep. Next question. Cascadian. Oh, no, that was Cascadians. Fishy2951 says, or a variant of a Liberator that swaps the back inside vehicle pad for expanded cargo and adds a data center.
Not the data center, because you're literally coming into it's becoming very close to on every ship, right? I think you can automatically already put cargo where it needs to go. You just got to remember that there's no cargo plate, so you have to be careful. But technically, could you do it? Yes, absolutely. So it already kind of does that. But the data thing, that you're getting into everyman territory there, Fishy. Fishy's asked a shitload of questions, I've just realized. Anyway, a variant of the Caterpillar, right? But just dotted with turrets and bombs bays like space A3. Yeah. So one of the things they talked about early on was just having the doors open, and you could literally just put vehicles in there and have them shooting out. So yeah, that's a thing.
Yep. People used to do that with with dragonflies.
So those questions there are just him replying to someone. Sean Solo asks, in reference to the Titan suits, how about a loader-style robot helper you can own to help cut loading times on your ship? Isn't that just an NPC in a power loader?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
And would they give an AI version? No, because AI kills us in law.
No, yeah, I think, that's true. That is true.
So the robot helper, no, because AI kills us.
Want to discuss engineering? Well, yeah, ask a question, but that's a really loaded question. We always want to talk about things, but we're trying.
What do you want to?
We're trying to wrap up these questions. Why are you doing this, Crystal? Anyway,
because they asked at 10 o'clock.
Question: will we get an all Argo pack for AIE this year? I think they need a couple more ships. I could be wrong. What have we got? Mole, Raft,
Argo,
PUV. No, it's not enough. I think you need at least 4 or 5 before you can do that. But hey, who knows? Maybe we will. Hey, maybe there's a new ship coming, so maybe we will.
Yep. Maybe that sneak peek was not of the SRV, but of a cargo ship that they're building that we don't know of.
I've actually thought that a couple of times. I'm like, yeah, it's not the SRV. It's just the tricking us. But maybe it's maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's.
So it could be.
Orion. Wait, what was it? Yeah. Can the Orion take and refine saddlebags on the Prospector and Mole? I would assume yes, but you would have to transfer them like you've got to transfer everything. So it's maybe more of a manual process. The Prospector could probably dock and you just transfer it by hand.
Given what they said about the what's the one they were talking about? When they were talking the refinery, I think they were talking about it being able to take the saddlebags, and they said the saddlebags would be standard across ships. And so, yeah, I can't see why you wouldn't transfer them to the Orion and put them into the Orion's big storage containers. So,
morning. Do you see different vehicle manufacturers branching into different gameplay loops in the future? Origin mining, but yeah, well, that's one of the things we've talked about. But yeah, I think Algared's probably a better one to answer this than me. But it's all in lore, and you can kind of see it already. Like Origin doesn't seem to go outside that touring exploration combo, but we've said we'd like to see them go into science. But then again, we do, like Badger said before, we haven't seen many science ships, so it still could be a thing. But there are a few little ones like the Reclaimer. Yeah, the Reclaimer is technically outside the purview of Aegis.
The classic, yeah, but the classic example is the P-52-72.
I was going to say Ares, because it broke Crusader.
No, that's the Abomination.
Yeah,
but like you look at, because they're a ship manufacturer, but you look at the P-52-72, Kruger Intergalactic are a weapons manufacturer that branched into ships. That is what you're asking, straight down the line. The Ares and the A2 bomber, they're just an abomination and bastardization of the humanitarian friendly warm, fuzzy company that wants to change the system from the inside, and they suck at government. So that's my view on that. But
I think Dawn Steele has shown that he's Australian. He asks, odds of a space drop bears?
Well, you know, I get the impression that Xeon Pet would be an ideal version for a drop bear.
Yeah.
Because it looks nice and sweet and cuddly and friendly, but you know, drop bears are the nasty, horrible. They're almost like if people want to know the version of drop bears, you've got the koala bear, which is like your gremlin type before you feed it, and then you've got drop bears, which is the equivalent of gremlins. It's that type of difference between them.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one actually by Zen Strata. He asks, do you foresee drones being directly controlled or more like just a point and shoot, and they automate their functions after that? I see them like a remote mini ship. So if you kind of think of I'd almost imagine them taking something like the Merlin and working backwards from there. So you're in a remote camera and you go up and you can set them to do a process, and then you move on to the other one and set them to do a process. So, you know, you might, so it's kind of like halfway between AI, because I've often said to these boys, the way AI seems like it's going to work is it'll be artificial. So they're doing a task. If you do the task, you actually have to do it, but they may like work out an average time of, you know, the rankings of star rankings. So it might go, the AI is just sitting there, it's counting in a timer, and after 40 seconds it finishes. You know, like that's how it goes. So the drone could be the same thing.
I got the impression when they were talking, and my memory says it was when they were talking about the Vulcan and the drone use on the Vulcan and how you would do that, because I think the drone, it had 4 drones, but it only had 2 spaces or 1 space to control the drones from. And so you'd set the drone doing its job, and then you could set a second one. So you could kind of have a station that could do 2 or 3 drones at a time and control them, and you'd set the position, and then while it's doing that job, you'd set another one, and then you'd come back and do that, you know. But and then when it was finished its job, it would just come back and dock at its point of location. If you went out of range of it, then it just stayed there as inactive.
So
which seems to be exactly what you were saying.
I'm laughing here at Varus because he's going, facepalm, I forgot to put question. Lol, oh well. So he asked a question but didn't say question, and then followed up with a context like that. So we've now got a disconnected thing of what he said. So yeah, you didn't. We can't answer your question because you never re-asked it. Sempasta asks, what happens when you put a spawn point on a ship and the ship gets blown up? Well, at the moment, when the carrot gets blown up, you respawn it at your previous med bed or your default med bed. And you
get a message that says the spawn point or that blah 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 was unavailable.
Didn't they say originally that you would spawn at your the next closest? Might be the final thing. So it might not be your primary one anymore. It might be the next closest. I don't know. In the future, they may change it. They make it the same.
We'll see.
Ted Wendelbo asks, will they ever sell land claims again?
Well, technically, they do.
On the
if
store?
You look at if you look at the Praetorian pack, it's got a Pioneer in it. In the details with the Pioneer that Praetorian pack, it's got a land claim.
I don't think they'll sell them individually ever again because it was
not like they did initially. No.
Yeah, and I don't think they should. Quite honestly, I think they should refund the people that did buy them because it was a really bad idea on their behalf. So yeah. I've lost where I was up to. Oh, there we go. What about pulley attachment for the multi-tool rope plastic? No, again for the same reason I said. Why would you go back and make more work for yourself by making a physical tool when you can cheat with gamification and a laser beam? Yeah,
I don't need to have rope physics.
Yeah, the only reason they're going to really have rope physics is basically if you actually think about it, when you're climbing down a rope, in a game, it's a drawn line between you and a fixed point. That's not actually changing. This part under here is the dangly part with the physics. It's actually got nothing to do with gameplay. It's just a point from here to here, and that is always a straight line. There's never ever bend in it or anything. So that's all that is. It's literally just a vanity thing and look. So yeah.
My question was, the only question I have with is the ability of our hand tools or our tractor beams to actually pull us up. And once they do that, they don't need ropes at all. So they allow our tractor beams to be able to pull us up, you know, click onto a rock face up the top of a cliff and then tractor beam us up. If that pulls us up to the rock face rather than pulling the rock to us, then they don't need ropes. So,
So Fishy says a box for 0D enhanced environments is inflatable and seals up just for life support. Yeah, but also they've got the oxygen oxy pens. Isn't what that? You know, I'm thinking more like when they have those emergency things that you put over your face. Even when you're underwater, they have those emergency rebreathers and stuff. So you could just have one in your, on your pocket, and you just.
Yep, I think the idea of those. I did see someone who was trying to get to their ship without a spacesuit, and they had an oxy pen. And had they used a second oxy pen, they'd have done it.
There you go.
So.
Dutch Much put up a question before I did. Yeah, we answered that earlier. Yeah, that's cool. Badges, if there is no, we answered that before he left. Fishy says, how long after the SRV is released do you think it will be until someone hauls asteroids over Herson and commences the first bombardment of Lawville? About 2 hours. Because it'll be me. Yeah, and I'll make Algared watch from the service. All right, how do I contact you guys for a Fix My Fleet review?
They'll ruin the supply of Evercrack.
You can either get on the Discord and reach out to me and Algared directly, or you can drop. What we usually recommend is drop your stuff into Fix My Fleet and the Fix My Fleet channel, and they will have a look at it and see if it's worth us looking at. But if you think yours,
you can just
reach out to me and Algared. It's that simple.
Yep, or send us both a message, and we'll basically do the same thing. But yep, with people on the channel and us, we'll help anyone out. We'll give what we think. We'll give suggestions. But remember, when we do Fix My Fleet, we are always looking at the bang for buck. We're not necessarily saying this ship sucks, this ship's good ship, this ship's a bad ship. We're looking at getting the best bang for buck that suits what you say you want to do. And that will be different for every person. And thanks to the super chat there. I can't see who's done that super chat. I can't read the name.
Glitch Tonic says, "Can I get Titan Suits focus carrier that catapults them in like the Gundam?" Yeah, that's something that's come around a few times, isn't it, Algared?
It is something. It is a question that's been raised a few times. Will we be able to do that? And we don't know. It's a guess. It'd be nice, but we can't guarantee it.
There was a really cool comment there by Naked Truth Gaming, and I've lost it in the sea of chat. He literally said when he was talking to that CIG dev, which I've now lost the name of in my thought process as well.
It was Chad McKinney.
Yeah, but he was talking about about animals and stuff. So the video we did, it kind of like was saying, I wonder if he was saying yeah. So that video we did that didn't track too well, like the epiphanies we got out of it, but people just don't seem to give a shit about animals. That's really weird. And I did think that they wouldn't. I'm just surprised how badly that video tracked compared to our normal stuff. So yeah.
Anyway. When it's not pew pew, it is a game loop that's totally outside of where people normally think.
You've got to think of it like industry, as we said. Like it's a whole.
The second you.
It's like ore mining or gas mining or salvage. It is literally harvesting of animals and breeding of animals and plants. It's exactly the same.
And the second you start looking at that further, you go, and how can the criminal element impact that? Well, that's rustling and, and yeah, so there's a whole host of different avenues. And then if you're on a planet and you're trying to stay low key, you're not going to be powering up your engines as much or your systems as much. You're going to be using the low energy things. And to that, you're going to use animal power or, so yeah. Lots of options.
All right, Algared, we're down to like 6 or 7 questions. So Jay Wazinski says, how does CIG planning allows players to impact the economy when supposedly 90% of the economy is AI? Seems like law reasons to be arbitrary. I think they said that they'll allow us to bend it. Oh my God, that's the worst frozen image I've ever had. Bend it, but we can't break it. So it allows them to control
the AI.
It allows them to use the AI to fix anything we stuff up, essentially.
Yeah. So it stops us controlling the economy and ruining the economy like you see in every other MMO game. So it helps them to adjust and modify and tune it, but also gives the ability for us to influence it. So we're not going to be able to shut down the supply of bolts to X, Y, and Z because there's going to be multiple places supplying the bolts. We can influence it. We can reduce the supply, but we're not going to be able to screw it.
JQ Kaboom asks, do you see yourself refueling in front of a console while everyone else is on the battle doing cool stuff? Yeah, I'm not... Like, I'm good at shooting games and stuff like that, but for me, the appeal of Star Citizen is just the variety of things I can do. What about you, Algared?
Well, see, I'm taking umbrage at his question of, do you see yourself doing this, this, and this while other people are doing cool stuff? The person who's doing the refueling or sitting in the console doing whatever they're doing repair or that, for them, that is the cool stuff. That's why they're doing it.
Do what you enjoy.
But yes, I do see that being stuff that people will do.
All right, Cinemax Gamer, we're down to the last 5 questions now. Question, are the utility mounts for the mining lasers compatible with tractor beams? Can I swap a laser on my mole with a small tractor beam? I think the answer Algared and I have for that was that seems to be the plan, but as time's gone by, things have changed, so don't... Like, I'm almost expecting them to go, this is a scanner mount, this is a mining mount. I'm not expecting them just to be utility and gun mounts. I'm almost expecting them to go more bespoke. But don't rule it out. That's just my thought process, because it seems a bit weird to have a scanning ship that can mine.
Yeah. And I think that fits in with what we said before. Like, originally, you just had mounts. And your mounts, you could put whatever you wanted on the mounts. It was just, yep. And then as time went on, they actually divided them and said, this is a utility mount, this is a weapons mount. And then even missile mounts, so you couldn't put guns on your missile mount. So as time's gone on, they've actually become more streamlined. So I expect our utility mounts will actually get that division, like you were saying.
And Butter asks, jetpacks. Yes. Algared, yes or no?
Yeah. You can't use parachutes all the time.
D for AZ asks, why would land claims be a bad idea? Oh, that's a huge... No, I'm not... Because they're bad. Like $100 for a stick or $100 for a ship. Take the ship, not the stick. Algared,
it's bad bang for buck.
Yeah, that's it.
The land claims, sell the land claims as an in-game purchase.
It's like the marketing person goes, how can we rip them off even more than vehicles? Oh yeah, we'll sell them sticks. You know, it was like trying to, like someone going, I'm going to sell you this empty glass of air. Like that's kind of what the land claims are. It's like, you don't really get anything. You just kind of get this area on a map. And with the way shards are now, they're not even unique anymore. So someone else could have the same land space as you because of the way shards work now. So they're just a stupid concept.
And there was no guarantee that if you bought a land claim, an 8x8 land claim, 8 kilometre by 8 kilometre land claim, that would be $100.
Yeah.
Gave you a stick to claim a land. You claim a land that's got the resource on it. There was no guarantee that another player wouldn't come along and steal the resource on that land. And the idea was, once the resource on that land were gone, they were gone.
Yep, and they also they also talked about how on day one you could actually buy a land claim if you had the money. So the only advantage you had was you had it in your inventory and you could get out there before they did. That was it. You still had to find it. So if you're looking there for 5 hours trying to find it and they find it before you, there was no real advantage to it. It was such a minor advantage. You were paying a huge price for it. We're going to move on though. But
that was a bad idea.
Whole land claim system is questionable value. The discussion on it is another video, but I can't remember which video. Yeah, I can't remember it either. But we can't.
Yeah, I can't remember the video either. But
last question is from Fat Gus. Question. Sorry, didn't format properly earlier. What do you think? Okay. What do y'alls think the first creator capital ship would be focused on? Maybe a smuggler, high value antiques carrier. Isn't that the Banner Merchantman?
Banner Merchantman would certainly be a merchant ship, antiques courier, certainly. If I had to pick the first Crusader capital ship, I'd say it's a carrier. it is a it is the Jupiter, which in law was their carrier to take their shuttles to market because.
Weren't you on a law podcast with David Haddock and he literally ruled that out while you were on the podcast?
I can't remember David Haddock ruling it out. I do know that Paul doesn't think it because of the size of the Crusader shuttles, which would make it huge. And if Dave did say it, that would have been the argument he gave. But it would be nice to see, if you're going a Crusader capital ship, that would be the capital ship that I would want them to do.
Right.
So,
Crusader capital. Just to really rub Algared the wrong way, it would have to have like the biggest guns you've ever.
Yeah, you want a ship of mass destruction. Yeah.
It actually fires Ares at people. It's Crusader catapult just flings Ares at people.
It's a planetary bombardment ship. Capital planetary bombardment ship to totally bastardize.
And it throws other ships. It bombards. It's a salvage ship. It literally bombs other ships onto other ships so you can salvage them later. That's a hard one because like the only other ship that at the moment, like a lot of the Crusader stuff is really skewed towards cargo, right? We've got a bit of data running in the MSR. We've got the people transport. They are a transport manufacturer that happened to get sucked in with the Ares. So if I look at that, to me, it would have to be something akin to vehicle transport, but it's really large, or as you said, a ship transport thing. So, I think like how do you put it? Like a multi-level ship that has like for vehicles, and then maybe underneath it has like tractor beams for holding ships. So but it has to be done in such a way that you can't just rapidly deploy. So maybe it's only got life support for 2 people, and it's got like 4 defense turrets or something like that. You got to really limit it so there's no way you can't just rock up and deploy a whole army, right? So that's the thing they've got to be careful with. It's got to be done in such a way that there is no way you can put like 30 people on that ship, because if you can put that a number of people, that means they can somehow get into the vehicles and deploy them, right? But the other thing you got to hang on, just let me finish, because the other thing is if you had something like a Valkyrie, you could also just transfer, you know what I mean? 2 separate ships, you can do it as well. So that's why, I think that's why they might not go that way. And when I did talk to SA, he also said when the ship is large enough to transport itself, they never ever transport it. So I do think the largest you're probably going to get is the Kraken. That's a really tough one because they don't have anything outside that purview of transportation.
It really, and that picked up, that's one of the things that makes the Kraken a weird ship, because you've got the 2 medium pads where ships are big enough to transport themselves, and SA was talking military stuff and talking carrier ships and what ships need to be carried, and those medium ships on the Kraken just seem weird. That those medium pads, that the ships that would use them are ships like the Vanguard, which are have that long range capability.
Yeah, you can also put like if you've got like you want to go out with a mining fleet, you can take the Kraken out. You can have 4 prospectors and 2 moles.
Yep.
So I get the mediums.
So there's a use for it, but the argument of being, the small, but those ships would be, So I can see a use for it, but I'm just picking up SA's idea.
Yeah, well, SA's idea is more like, say, a large ship. So a large ship is something like akin to a Connie or up to a Reclaimer type of thing. And those ships will just move on their own power because they can go that extra distance. An MSR can cross the system, but like you go, down to a mole, it can't. It just doesn't have the fuel to get across the system.
But to go to that Crusader capital ship, I could see, if you were doing a carrier ship like the Jupiter, I could see that being a something akin to a Kraken. I could see something like that. If it could do that, that's fine. But I wouldn't want it to be something like a Bengal carrier type thing. You wouldn't want that at all.
Renil Solka asks, hey, Execute, what camera are you using? Me and Algared both have a camera called a Canon EOS M50, but mine seems to be having Mark 1. There is a Mark 2 out as well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I'm just having so many issues. Mine Algared seems to be working quite well, so I don't know what's wrong with mine. But yeah, what I've been looking at, anyone that is I am looking for help, by the way. I should probably just say it here, actually. I am looking for help on camera recommendations. The two that I've looked at and been recommended by a few people they're both Sonys, because we're also looking between budget. We don't want to spend too much, right? So the two that we've been looking at is a fairly new one from Sony that came out at the start of the year called I'm going to butcher this, an EVZ10. And the other one is the Sony A6400. They are very similar to each other, but they will do the job, and they come highly recommended. So they're the two I'm looking at.
And they're, and just to put that into thing, that's looking at a price of around $1,200 to $1,400 dollars. So
about 1,000 to
Australian, I think.
Yeah, 1,000
Australian, I think.
1,000 to about 1,400. It depends. The first one I mentioned is cheaper, but it's also got some few cutback features. But again, I just want some recommendations, because I'm not a camera person. Algared's not a camera person. None of the guys in Inforunners are camera people. So I had to go to real life people that I knew that were photographers and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I do photos. I don't do video." So taking a DSLR and using it for camera purposes seems to be very bespoke to YouTubers, but I don't know someone like Alpha Gaming or something like that that is highly into just cameras on YouTube. So I'm just going to ask you guys and get a pool of different ideas, and they seem to be the ones that people are pointing me towards, so we'll see what happens. With that, though, we will...
I will do the last question that's popped up. Rodney 1984 says, how's the server stability at the moment? My experience at the moment is I'm getting about 10 minutes of gameplay and then I'm crashing. But that seems to be rare. Other people are getting hours of gameplay.
I'm not having any issues at all. But Algared and I will tell you, from patch to patch, I might have a bad patch and he'll have a great patch. And at the moment, I'm having a good one and he's having a bad one. So different setups, different things. And so yeah. All right, with that then, I think we'll wrap up.
Don't forget, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. If you like what we're doing and you like this episode, please consider liking that, hitting that bell, hitting the subscribe button or the like button. If you've come back again, as Paul would say, you've obviously liked what we do. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, consider hitting it. And if you really do want to go that extra yard and help us out with equipment and other things, which will hopefully help us improve the quality, then consider doing things like becoming a YouTube member, or doing Twitch subscriber links or whatever they do there on Twitch, or even going onto Patreon and becoming a Patreon supporter.
Yep. All right, so I'm sending the people on Twitch over to Paul. They're about to head over, and when we see you guys on Twitch, thanks for joining us. See you next week. They're off, and I'm also sending you guys over to join Paul as well on YouTube. But yeah, we will have another show out this weekend, and we have, as Algared and I said, we have recorded a couple of Fix My Fleets for you guys during AIE.
Yep. We will hopefully have 2 or 3.
He's been Algared. I've been Execute.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here.
Catch you in the next one.